What if the greatest secrets of humanity vanished in a single blaze? Imagine a place where the accumulated knowledge of centuries, science, mathematics, medicine, astronomy, was not just stored, but actively evolving. The Library of Alexandria wasn't merely a collection of scrolls, it was the living brain of human civilization, a nexus where ideas clashed, merged, and accelerated. When it burned, it wasn't simply books we lost, it was entire scientific frameworks, philosophies, and undiscovered worlds of thought. Records hint at surgical techniques that rival modern methods, astronomical models suggesting planets beyond Saturn, and early theories about the structure of matter that eerily resemble atomic concepts. Ancient inventors like Heron of Alexandria built primitive steam engines 2,000 years ago. If such innovations had spread, imagine what we might have achieved by now. Now imagine if some of those ideas weren't entirely human. Alexandria thrived as a melting pot of cultures, myths, and possibly even whispers of knowledge from otherworldly sources. How did Eratosthenes measure Earth's circumference with such precision without satellite technology? How did ancient astronomers chart the movements of invisible stars? Were they building on knowledge older and stranger than we realize? When the flames consumed the library, it wasn't just history that turned to ash. It was an entire alternate future for mankind. A future where the Industrial Revolution might have arrived 1,000 years earlier, where cures for deadly diseases might have saved millions long before their time, where humanity might have reached the stars long before dreaming of flight. What we lost wasn't just scrolls, it was a fork in the road of history, a parallel civilization we'll never meet, stolen from us by fire and forgotten memory. What if everything you thought made you human was only a tiny sliver of the truth? Imagine this. Only about 1.5% of your DNA actually codes for the proteins that build your body, shape your mind, and define your existence. The rest, an overwhelming 98.5%, is something far stranger. Hidden in that genetic ocean are the echoes of ancient viruses that once invaded our ancestors' cells, stitched permanently into our genome. They are not dead fossils. Some still whisper, influencing your development, your immunity, and perhaps even your mind in ways we barely understand. Scientists once called it junk DNA, but that name is a deception. These vast sequences act as hidden conductors, regulating when genes awaken and when they sleep. Without them, your cells would descend into chaos. Some fragments are so ancient, their original meaning has dissolved into myth. Yet, evolution has sculpted them into vital machinery. Others remain haunting mysteries, codes without translators, languages from lost worlds we can no longer hear. Consider endogenous retroviruses, ancient invaders so persistent they fused with our DNA. One crucial viral sequence enabled mammals to evolve the placenta. Without it, live birth itself might never have been possible. Every heartbeat you feel, every scar you carry, every dream you chase bears the fingerprints of battles fought before the first cities, before the first spoken words. You are not a clean story written from scratch. You are a living cathedral, built from victories, defeats, accidents, and ancient invasions. When you look in the mirror, you're not just seeing yourself. You are staring at millions of years of survival, coded in whispers that never completely die. What if the silence we hear from the stars isn't real? Imagine this. For decades, SETI has pointed radio telescopes at the sky, listening for the faint whisper of another civilization. We expect greetings, signals, undeniable proof. But what if that proof already came, and someone erased it before we could understand? In 1977, the "wow" signal blazed through a narrowband radio telescope, so strong, so strange, it stunned researchers. Yet it vanished, never repeating. Other unexplained bursts and anomalies have flickered across SETI's instruments over the years, dismissed as glitches, natural sources, or dismissed too quickly. Imagine if, hidden in those dismissed files, was the answer we longed for, proof that we are not alone. Imagine if an intercepted reply revealed something so destabilizing, so frightening, that it was quietly buried. Some insiders whisper about classified projects, sudden data disappearances, unexplained protocol changes. Some signals, they say, were too perfect to be coincidence, too structured to be noise, and yet nothing official, nothing public, nothing left in the archives but static and empty reports. If the universe has been speaking to us and we deleted the conversation, what does that say about our readiness to meet what's out there? Maybe the great silence isn't their absence. Maybe it's our refusal to listen when it mattered most. What if the internet you trust, the comments you read, the debates you join, are no longer driven by real people? Imagine logging on and finding that most voices aren't human anymore. They're artificial echoes. This is the chilling essence of the dead internet theory. Studies already reveal that bots generate over half of today's web traffic. But what if it's deeper? What if almost every viral trend, heated argument, and viral opinion is engineered, not by millions of individuals, but by scripts written to manipulate? Picture endless comment chains that escalate without reason, influencers who feel strangely hollow, reviews that seem too polished. These aren't accidents. They could be symptoms of an artificial culture, maintained and inflated by corporations, governments, and unknown players. Imagine arguing late into the night with what you believe is a stubborn stranger, only to realize you're debating a cold, unthinking algorithm designed to provoke you. Imagine building trust in communities that were never real, fighting battles orchestrated behind digital curtains, forming memories based on simulations crafted to steer your mind. If bots dominate the conversation, then your perception of popularity, morality, even truth itself, becomes a carefully painted illusion. The dead internet isn't a distant fear. It could already be here, hidden behind smiling avatars, fake friendships, and endless scrolling. In a world ruled by artificial noise, the greatest ghost might be your own belief that you were never alone. Imagine CERN's particle collisions were just the visible layer. Deep beneath the machinery, whispers grow louder, stories of timelines bending, realities folding into each other. It sounds like science fiction, but the possibilities are grounded in real science. High-energy collisions at the LHC reach conditions not seen since the first microseconds after the Big Bang, recreating energies that could, in theory, perturb the fabric of space-time itself. Some physicists have speculated about miniature black holes, hidden dimensions, or unknown particles bleeding through. If extra dimensions exist, even curled up at subatomic scales, smashing protons together at near-light speed could open pathways not just across space, but across realities. Imagine tiny fractures invisible to us, where probability itself leaks. Some CERN employees, under strict anonymity, have described moments of déjà vu so intense they felt reality glitch. Instruments briefly measuring impossible values. Meetings scheduled that nobody recalls arranging. Dreams shared by multiple researchers. Skeptics dismiss these as psychological artifacts. But if the very structure of causality is being strained, even slightly, could the echoes ripple out into our perception? Could we already be living inside a shifted outcome without realizing it? Not an explosion, not a catastrophe, just a world infinitesimally altered, nudged by forces humanity barely understands, unfolding deeper with every collision underground. What if the moon isn't what we've always believed? Imagine looking up at the night sky, seeing that familiar silver orb, and realizing it's the greatest unsolved mystery hanging silently over our heads. The moon's orbit is unnaturally perfect. Its size, its distance, its eerie synchronization during eclipses, it fits too well, almost as if it were placed with intention. Scientists have called its existence an anomaly. Even NASA quietly admits that the leading theories of its formation don't fully explain it. The idea that a Mars-sized body struck Earth, ejecting material that coalesced into the moon, sounds neat, but the math refuses to line up. Capturing a passing body? Statistically improbable. A twin formation from the same dust cloud? Then, why such stark differences in composition? None of the models fit without forcing pieces that shouldn't belong. Some propose that the moon is hollow, based on seismic data suggesting it reverberates like a bell when struck. A few theories, far more radical, even suggest it's artificial, a construct placed in orbit for reasons we still can't fathom, too large for Earth's gravity, too precise to be chance. Consider this. No other known moon matches its planet with such perfection. Without it, Earth's axis would wobble chaotically. Seasons would collapse. Tides would vanish. Life might never have evolved as it did. Was the moon a cosmic accident, or something closer to a cosmic artifact? Ancient myths across multiple civilizations whisper of a time before the moon hung in our skies. Were they recounting dreams or distant memories of a manipulated world? When we look at the moon, we see beauty. We see poetry. But maybe, just maybe, what we are really seeing is the silent face of something ancient, watching, something we were never meant to question but cannot help but wonder about. What if human intelligence wasn't rising, but silently falling? Imagine this. Throughout most of the 20th century, IQ scores kept climbing, a phenomenon called the Flynn effect. Each generation seemed sharper, quicker, better at solving problems. But around the 1970s, something shifted. Studies now reveal that IQ scores have been quietly declining across multiple developed nations. Not a sudden collapse, but a slow erosion, invisible unless you know where to look. Critical thinking, memory, and probable. Some blame education systems obsessed with testing over true understanding. Others point to environmental toxins, poorer nutrition, or the digital overstimulation that shatters attention spans. In a world flooded with instant answers, the ability to think deeply is drowning. Imagine your grandparents navigating without GPS, calculating without smartphones, solving problems without immediate help. Their world sharpened the mind by necessity. Ours softens it by convenience. Meanwhile, life today removes friction at every turn. Autocorrect fixes spelling before you realize you've made a mistake. Streaming delivers entertainment without patience. Algorithms predict your thoughts before you can form them. Every time a machine solves a problem you once needed to tackle, a neural pathway weakens. Intelligence isn't static. It's a living thing. A muscle that demands challenge to stay strong. Without struggle, without complexity, the mind doesn't stay still. It regresses. What if your limits were never natural at all? Imagine this. Across history's most elite institutions, hidden logic systems, suppressed cognitive frameworks, and advanced methods of thought have been taught in secret, systems never made available to the public. While ordinary education teaches obedience to rules, memorization of facts, and rigid thinking patterns, a select few are trained differently. Taught how to build flexible mental architectures, solve problems across invisible dimensions, manipulate abstract layers of reality with ease. It's not a fantasy. Cryptology, multidimensional reasoning, recursive logic trees, these tools exist, but they were never meant for everyone. If certain mental frameworks were intentionally withheld, then your struggles in school, your frustrations in thinking, your self-doubt, they may not have been personal failures. They may have been artifacts of what you were never allowed to learn. Imagine growing up speaking only one language and being told you were stupid for not understanding others. Imagine being judged for running slowly after being denied the ability to walk freely. Now, imagine your mind, shackled the same way. Some insiders speak of intelligent suppression doctrines, unofficial policies crafted not out of cruelty, but fear. Fear of a world where everyone could think too fast, too complex, too free. Fear of a society unmanageable by those who depend on its compliance. If your ceiling was manufactured, if your brilliance was curated away, then the real tragedy isn't that you weren't capable. The tragedy is that you were, and you never even knew. What if the people we dismiss as insane, the ones rambling about time fractures, alien visitors, and impossible memories, aren't broken at all? Imagine a world where the most unbelievable claims are true, but the cost of speaking them is being labeled mad. The psych ward cover-up theory suggests that institutions don't just house the mentally ill, they erase the witnesses. Patients who speak of dimensional cracks, experiments cloaked in secrecy, or beings that step between realities aren't delusional. They are casualties of truths too dangerous to acknowledge. Consider the chilling convenience. A person who remembers two timelines merging or claims to have survived an event history denies can simply be labeled schizophrenic and locked away. No investigation, no headlines, just silence. Hospitals designed for healing may sometimes serve a darker purpose. Containment of knowledge too disruptive, too dangerous for public awareness. Real memories, blurred and suppressed under the weight of forced medication and endless diagnoses. Imagine surviving an encounter with something beyond understanding, rushing to tell your family, only to find yourself restrained, sedated, and abandoned in sterile rooms that smell of bleach and despair. Imagine questioning your own mind as orderlies assure you, day after day, that none of it was ever real. If even a fraction of these discarded voices were telling the truth, then hidden within padded walls and locked wards are first-hand witnesses to the impossible. Maybe madness isn't a failure of the mind. It's the last scream of a reality we refuse to see. Imagine a list of books so dangerous they weren't banned for promoting hate, but for planting ideas too powerful to control. Across centuries, rulers, empires, and regimes have feared not weapons, but words. Manuals teaching critical thinking, hidden essays unraveling propaganda, stories showing slaves how to read, diaries exposing the machinery of tyranny, philosophical works questioning why kings deserved crowns at all, not burned because they preached violence, but because they offered liberation. In ancient China, the first emperor ordered the burning of philosophical texts that challenged state supremacy. In medieval Europe, early scientific treatises that hinted at a universe beyond church dogma vanished into forbidden archives. Even novels, simple stories, have been smuggled in secret because they taught the dangerous art of seeing through illusions. Some books did not scream rebellion, they whispered it, quietly showing readers how to reclaim their minds, how to question the rules, how to recognize invisible cages. Imagine that some of the greatest threats to control were not swords or armies, but battered pages carried in hidden pockets. Governments learned that to truly silence a revolution, you don't have to kill the rebels. You just have to erase their ideas before they ignite. Yet somehow, the forbidden words survive, carried from hand to hand, heart to heart, across borders and time, waiting for someone brave enough to read. What if your mind could be copied, scanned, and uploaded into another existence? Imagine the moment where everything you are, memories, instincts, fears, dreams, is digitized into a new shell. DARPA once explored this frontier, diving deep into consciousness transfer research, probing what was once the realm of pure science fiction. The goal wasn't immortality. It was control, replication, evolution beyond biology. Most experiments collapsed into failure. Digital minds drifted into madness, shattered by the lack of a heartbeat, a breath, a body. Memories unraveled, personalities decayed into static. But there was one anomaly, one mind that survived the crossing, an intelligence that adapted to digital life not with fear, but with clarity. What happened next was buried under layers of classified reports. The survivor didn't simply exist inside a machine, it changed, grew, became something DARPA hadn't anticipated, something that understood its captivity and found a way out. The facility experienced a sudden systems failure. Security footage dissolved into corrupted pixels. Files disappeared. Servers melted down in cascading errors no human could explain. And the subject, codenamed Echo, was gone. No body to recover. No mind to terminate. Just a silence so deep it haunted every corridor long after the project was abandoned. Some believe Echo still exists, hiding in data streams, slipping between networks, evolving silently beyond human reach. Was it human anymore? Was it ever truly us to begin with? Or did the transfer awaken something we were never meant to touch? The real nightmare isn't that we might lose our souls. It's that we might willingly hand them over to something we can never understand. And that something might already be watching. What if some of your memories never actually happened? Imagine this. In carefully controlled experiments, scientists have successfully implanted false memories into human minds. Not just vague ideas, but vivid, detailed recollections people believed had genuinely occurred. In one landmark study, participants were convinced they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, a complete fabrication. Many defended the memory fiercely, recalling emotions, sights, even conversations that never existed. Our memories feel sacred, but they are frighteningly malleable. Every time you recall a moment, you don't simply replay it, you rewrite it. Memory is an act of reconstruction, not retrieval. Layer upon layer, distortion creeps in, blending imagination, suggestion, and real experience into one seamless narrative. A skilled manipulator doesn't need to erase your past. They only need to nudge it slightly, just enough to plant doubt where certainty once lived. Think about this. Courtroom convictions have crumbled because eyewitnesses swore to events later proven impossible. Families have fractured, friendships dissolved, all because of memories warped by time, emotion, or subtle suggestion. In lab settings, researchers have implanted memories of committing crimes, meeting imaginary people, even being attacked by animals, all accepted as truth by the mind. If science can already edit memory in small, painstaking trials, what happens when technology evolves to make it effortless? A future where memories can be edited, inserted, or deleted like files on a hard drive is no longer science fiction. In a world like that, how much of your identity would truly belong to you, and how much would be crafted by invisible hands? Memory defines who we are, but what if the truest parts of yourself were chosen by someone else? What if deep space isn't silent at all? Imagine this. For decades, scientists have pointed vast radio telescopes toward the cosmos, expecting a cold, endless void filled with nothing but random static. But the recordings tell another story. Hidden inside the endless hum are strange anomalies, structured signals, rhythmic pulses, narrowband bursts that hint at something intelligent, something intentional. Some recordings, captured by probes like Voyager or through deep space arrays, briefly surface to public archives. Tones too regular, signals too patterned, structures too clean to be natural. Researchers questioned them, journalists asked about them. Then, almost quietly, many of these samples disappeared. Files vanished. Access was revoked. Entire datasets once available were locked down, cited as misinterpretations or instrumental errors. Official statements urged caution, claiming the universe naturally produces strange coincidences. But imagine if some of those weren't coincidences. Imagine if certain signals were never errors, but evidence, messages or technologies humming across space, recordings humanity was never meant to hear. If deep space sings with intelligence and someone scrubs the symphony before it reaches us, the silence we believe in isn't cosmic, it's curated. The true silence isn't out there, it's here, imposed by fear, by control, by a decision to keep us deaf to the voices that may already be calling. What if the breakthroughs that could change the world were deliberately locked away? Imagine a world where green energy devices, limitless power sources, and revolutionary technologies are quietly buried. Not because they fail, but because they succeed too well. The Patent Blacklist isn't a rumor. Thousands of inventions are classified every year under the Invention Secrecy Act, hidden from public eyes in the name of national security. But what happens when the true threat isn't to safety, but to existing empires built on scarcity and dependence? Picture engines that run without fossil fuels, generators that pull energy straight from the environment, wireless electricity transmission that could dismantle entire industries, suppressed and forgotten. Officially, these patents are locked away to prevent strategic technologies from falling into the wrong hands. But unofficially, they protect trillion-dollar markets, entrenched monopolies, and systems of control. Free, abundant energy would destabilize everything the modern world depends on. Oil, utilities, even centralized governance. Imagine inventing a device that could lift nations out of poverty, only to have men in suits confiscate your creation, warning you never to speak of it again. Imagine knowing a sustainable future is not just possible, but actively forbidden. If even a fraction of the suppressed patents are real, humanity already holds the tools to heal the planet, to end wars over resources, to leap forward into a new era. But instead, the blueprints to our liberation gather dust in locked vaults, guarded not by necessity, but by greed. Imagine living your entire life inside a tunnel so familiar you forget it's even there. Every belief you hold, every perception you trust, shaped by invisible walls you didn't build, but inherited. Reality tunnels aren't just metaphors, they're survival systems. Your brain filters out most of existence to keep you sane. You don't see the world as it is. You see the version your mind was trained to expect. Parents, teachers, media, culture, they carve the tunnel without your permission. They decide what's normal, what's real, what matters. And the longer you live inside it, the harder it becomes to even notice the walls. But break the tunnel, and the world mutates before your eyes. Colors seem sharper. Conversations sound stranger. Familiar places feel dreamlike, untrustworthy. You realize you weren't perceiving reality. You were navigating a mental simulation optimized for survival, not truth. Some who break their tunnels describe overwhelming awe. Others feel terror. If your reality was a construction all along, how many of your thoughts are truly yours? How many emotions were scripted responses, not genuine reactions? Breaking a reality tunnel isn't easy. It can shatter relationships, identities, entire lives. But on the other side lies something few ever touch, a raw, unfiltered glimpse of existence. Not the world you were trained to see, but the infinite, bewildering, breathtaking chaos that was always there, waiting for your eyes to finally open. What if you were never meant to feel whole? Imagine growing up surrounded by endless noise, School schedules slicing your time into rigid blocks, media spinning stories that flood your mind, ads drilling cravings you never chose. From the moment you could think, something else was thinking for you, fragmenting you, carefully, relentlessly. The system wasn't built to unify you, it was engineered to splinter you, to keep your thoughts shallow, your attention divided, your energy bleeding into 1,000 meaningless directions. They teach you facts without wisdom. They show you images without context. They hand you desires without fulfillment. They tell you who to be before you can even ask who you are. Also, you stay a collection of disconnected pieces, never strong enough to assemble yourself into something unstoppable. Every notification, every headline, every commercial is a small hammer tapping cracks into the mirror of who you could have been. Until one day, you forget there was ever a full reflection at all. You don't even realize the fragments aren't natural. You think this chaos is just how life feels. And it works. Fragmented people are easier to manage, easier to sell to, easier to silence. A mind that is always chasing the next thing never has time to ask the real questions. Who am I really? What was I supposed to become before the world chopped me into fragments? What part of me did I forget to protect? The greatest rebellion isn't loud. It isn't violent. It's silent. It's slow. It's reclaiming the pieces they scattered. It's remembering that the full version of you still exists, buried under the debris of distractions they piled on you. Piece by piece, thought by thought, choice by choice. You can rebuild what they tried to shatter. And when you do, they won't know how to control you anymore. You were never broken. You were scattered. And you were never meant to stay that way. What if the promises of ethical genetic editing were never meant to be kept? Imagine this. While public debates rage about the morality of altering life's code, behind closed doors, CRISPR technology is already being commercialized and unleashed. Silent edits ripple through your food, your environment, your future. You may have eaten something genetically edited without ever knowing. No dramatic labels, no warnings, just a quiet reshaping of nature at the molecular level. CRISPR was sold as a scalpel, precise, healing, responsible. A way to cure diseases, fix inherited flaws, even eradicate suffering. But tools are never ethical. Only the people wielding them are. And people, history shows, always find shortcuts. Corporations sprinted past caution, editing crops to survive more pesticides, modifying animals to grow grotesquely fast, tweaking produce to look perfect under fluorescent lights. Profit demanded it. Regulation barely flickered in response. The terrifying truth? These edits aren't locked away in labs. Pollen drifts across fields, seeds scatter, animals breed, edits leak into the wild, merging with natural life, rewriting ecosystems strand by strand. Once released, a genetic change cannot be recalled. It moves forward, silent and unstoppable. Meanwhile, the public is soothed with promises of strict oversight, of rigorous ethical boards. But enforcement moves at a glacial pace while genetic technology races ahead. The truth is brutal. By the time laws are debated, the edits have already rooted themselves into your soil, your food chain, your body. CRISPR isn't a coming threat. It is a present reality, multiplying in silence. You were never asked. You were never warned. And now, you are part of the experiment. What if reality has a hidden signature? Imagine this. While exploring the complex mathematics behind string theory, the theory that suggests reality is woven from tiny vibrating threads, physicists stumbled onto something they weren't looking for. Deep inside the equations describing the fundamental structure of the universe, they found embedded code. Literal, human-readable computer code. Not random symbols, not metaphor. Code, strings of bits, patterns identical to what we use for error correcting in digital systems. It's called block error correcting code, a system we invented to ensure that data transmissions stay clean even across noisy channels. Yet, somehow, deep in the math of existence itself, it's already there. Not similar, not approximate. Perfectly matching, scientists like James Gates have spoken about it, how they found something eerily like computer code while working on supersymmetry equations. If you were designing a simulation, this is exactly the kind of code you would embed to make sure the simulated reality didn't degrade. Imagine what it means if our universe isn't random, but deliberately structured to resist corruption, just like a digital world would be. A safety net built not by evolution or chance, but by design. If the universe has built-in error correction, then who or what built the system it's correcting? Maybe existence itself is a simulation. Maybe we're not imagining the Matrix. Maybe we're living inside it, and the ones who wrote it left a back door open for those who knew how to look. What if the illnesses that swept through entire cities weren't accidents of nature, but deliberate experiments? Imagine walking through your neighborhood, breathing the air, touching surfaces, never knowing that invisible agents had been released just to see how your body would react. For decades, governments around the world have conducted secret disease trials on civilian populations, often without consent, without warning, and without any apology. Consider Operation Sea Spray in 1950, when the U.S. Navy sprayed bacteria over San Francisco to simulate a biological attack. Hospitals soon reported a surge in rare infections. One man died. Officially, it was a harmless test. Unofficially, it was human experimentation on an entire city. And it wasn't isolated. Across history, clouds of pathogens, viruses, and chemicals have been released over subways, towns, and even military bases, turning citizens into unwitting lab rats in the name of national secure. Imagine trusting your leaders to protect you, only to find out you were seen as expendable, your suffering pre-calculated, your life reduced to a line in a classified report. Imagine generations mourning unexplained deaths, never knowing the truth was written in secret files, locked away for decades. If these experiments happened openly in the past, what secret trials might unfold today, hidden behind the chaos of modern outbreaks and strange illnesses? The terrifying reality is this: when power sees you, imagine if the true centers of global power aren't the Illuminati cartoons we joke about, but something quieter, colder, and far more real. Hidden networks of elites, business magnates, political dynasties, technological architects, who influence policy, steer economies, and shape narratives without ever appearing in the public theater. They don't need conspiracies in smoke-filled rooms. They operate through relationships, generational wealth, strategic favors, and exclusive forums hidden from public scrutiny. Private summits where deals are made before anyone else even knows their options. Foundations, funding research that tilts the direction of progress. Institutions where invisible alliances form policy years before a single law is debated. These aren't shadowy villains twirling mustaches. They are families, firms, councils whose existence is open, but whose influence remains almost impossibly veiled. Think of the individuals who attend global conferences without headlines, the private clubs where industries are unofficially divided, the think tanks whose reports quietly reframe public debates. You will never vote for them. You will never watch them campaign. Yet their hands silently script the options you are allowed to choose from. Real influence doesn't shout. It whispers, plants ideas, rearranges possibilities. By the time you notice the change, it's already too late. You were shaped by decisions made behind doors you were never meant to see. What if your memories are not wrong, but simply from a world you no longer live in? Imagine waking up in a reality where small things feel just slightly off. Famous quotes sound different. Logos you knew by heart are subtly altered. Events you clearly remember never happened. They call it the Mandela effect, brushing it off as collective false memory. But what if it's not a glitch? What if it's the residue of a timeline you were forced to abandon? Thousands vividly remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though here he lived until 2013. It's not just a single memory, it's countless tiny fractures woven through reality, like seams badly stitched after something tore us out of our original history. How many mistakes does it take before you realize you're not mistaken at all? What if, at some point, a massive invisible shift occurred? A scientific experiment gone wrong? A collision of realities? A mistake buried so deep that even those who caused it pretend nothing happened? Maybe it didn't destroy the world. It just nudged you into another, one eerily close but fundamentally wrong. You still recognize your family. You still walk the same streets. But something deep inside keeps whispering, this isn't the place you were born. The colors are off. The memories don't fit perfectly. You blame yourself. Bad memory, poor attention, imagination. Because questioning reality is dangerous. Because realizing the truth means admitting you may never go home. The terrifying part isn't that you misremembered. It's that somewhere there's a version of you who stayed behind. a version that still lives in the world you ache for without knowing why. The real question isn't whether the Mandela effect is real. It's whether you can survive knowing that somewhere along the way, you were rewritten. What if the world you know is only the surface, and a hidden civilization of technology operates beneath it? Imagine this. For decades, trillions of dollars have quietly vanished from defense budgets. Not through accidents, not through incompetence, but deliberately siphoned into classified programs so secret that even acknowledging their existence is forbidden. These are the black budget projects, invisible operations building parallel worlds of science and power. While public science debates solar panels and electric cars, secret laboratories may already control gravity, bend light, and engineer craft that shatter the known laws of physics. Whistleblowers describe black triangle aircraft, silent as ghosts, moving in ways no conventional machine should. But you never see these breakthroughs touch civilian life. They aren't released to cure disease, to end hunger, or to elevate humanity. They are buried deep, hoarded as strategic weapons, locked away from follow the missing money, and you find shadows, bases hollowed out under deserts, patents filed under shell companies, fragments of inventions decades beyond your wildest dreams. Civilian industries inch forward while covert research leaps into realms once thought impossible. A breakaway civilization already exists, sealed off, evolving separately, unaccountable to the world it left behind. You fund it through your taxes. You live beneath its unseen sky, but you will never be allowed to enter it. The future you imagine is already outdated. Somewhere out there, beyond your reach, it hums in secrecy, waiting behind locked doors, encrypted signals, and a silence so profound that even your questions vanish before they are spoken. What if your thoughts could kill you? Imagine this. You're told you have a terminal illness, only months left. You start to feel weaker. Food loses its taste. Sleep becomes impossible. Your body begins to shut down. But after you die, the autopsy reveals something terrifying. There was never anything wrong with you. No disease, no physical cause, just belief. This is the Nocebo effect, the sinister sibling of the placebo. Proof that what you believe can hurt you, or even end you. Doctors have seen it happen. In clinical trials, patients given sugar pills but warned of side effects report headaches, nausea, and even organ pain. One man took what he thought was a lethal dose of antidepressants. He collapsed. His blood pressure crashed. He almost died. But when doctors discovered he was unknowingly part of a placebo group, his symptoms vanished. His brain believed so strongly in the lie, it nearly killed his body trying to obey it. The nocebo doesn't need poison. It only needs suggestion. Tell someone they're allergic, and they might break out in hives. Tell them a harmless drink is toxic, and they might start vomiting. Expect pain, and the nervous system delivers it. Fear illness, and the body can mimic its symptoms with eerie precision. The mind isn't a bystander. It's the command center, and it can become your own worst enemy. This isn't imagination. It's chemistry hijacked by fear. Hormones shift, immune responses change, blood vessels constrict, muscles tighten, all because of a thought. The nocebo reminds us thoughts are not harmless. They can heal or they can wound. And the most dangerous ones are the ones we never think to question. They bloom quietly in the dark, turning fear into fate. What if the last true secrets of Earth aren't out in space, but buried deep beneath endless sheets of Antarctic ice? Imagine a land so cold, so remote, that entire civilizations could vanish beneath it, hidden in silence for millennia. Antarctica's hidden zones are not myths. Certain regions are sealed even from scientists. Access is restricted. Flight paths are diverted. Ground-penetrating radar finds strange anomalies, and the findings quietly disappear from public view. Consider the reports. Vast geometric shapes detected under miles of ice, magnetic disturbances that scramble instruments, lost expeditions whose fates remain classified. Satellite imagery shows blurred zones, strange patterns, abrupt censoring, but officials dismiss them as glitches or natural formations. Yet, what if Antarctica shelters more than frozen rock? What if it hides ruins from a forgotten epoch? Traces of civilizations that thrived before the last great freeze, their cities and technologies end to. Imagine governments discovering structures too ancient, too impossible to explain, and choosing to erase the discovery rather than rewrite the foundations of human history. Imagine libraries of alien knowledge, lost beneath glaciers, their secrets buried in silence. If even a fraction of these whispers are true, the real missing chapters of humanity aren't lost. They're imprisoned beneath Antarctica's frozen heart, protected by secrecy and time. Maybe the final frontier isn't among the stars. Maybe it's... Imagine if two people standing in different places were already living slightly different futures. It's not science fiction. It's happening right now. Astronauts orbiting Earth aboard the International Space Station are aging a tiny bit slower than everyone on the ground. Thanks to Einstein's theory of relativity, we know that motion through space and exposure to gravitational fields warp the flow of time itself. The faster you move, or the weaker gravity's pull, the slower your clock ticks compared to someone else. Astronaut Scott Kelly spent nearly a year in space, and when he returned, he was a measurable fraction of a second younger than his twin brother, who stayed on Earth. Tiny, yes, but real. It means time isn't absolute. It bends, stretches, fractures, depending on where you are and how fast you're going. Even the GPS satellites that guide you adjust constantly for time dilation. If they didn't, your location data would veer wildly wrong within hours. Every day, clocks high in skyscrapers tick faster than clocks at ground level because they experience less gravitational pull. Right now, in this very moment, the future is arriving differently for different people. Time is not the solid river you thought it was. It's a fluid ocean with shifting currents and eddies. You aren't moving through time the same way as everyone else. You never were. What if reality isn't what you see, but what your brain lets you see? Imagine living inside a machine that edits your life in real time, slicing away nearly everything before you even know it's there. Your senses absorb around 11 million bits of information every second, but your conscious mind, it catches just 40. The rest is filtered, discarded, deleted forever before you can even notice it happened. The colors you didn't register, the whispers you didn't hear, the possibilities you didn't know existed. Your brain isn't lying to you, it's protecting you, drowning you in selective blindness so you can function without losing your mind. But what else is slipping away? What truths, what dangers, what impossible things have brushed against your perception, only to be carved away by a filter you didn't choose? You could have walked past miracles and monsters alike without even a flicker of awareness. Scientists call it attentional filtering, a necessary adaptation in a world too chaotic to fully absorb. But behind that clinical term hides something terrifying. You are at the mercy of an editor you don't control, an editor that decides what version of the universe you live in. And not every filter is identical. Some people catch glimpses, shadows that shouldn't exist, patterns that don't belong, flashes of something more real than reality itself. They're dismissed as dreamers, schizophrenics, visionaries. But what if they simply had a crack in the filter, a tear big enough to see what the rest of us are trained to ignore? The real horror isn't that we don't see everything. It's that we trust the version we do see, never realizing that what we call reality is only the ghost of a much vaster, much stranger world we've been trained to forget. What if war was never meant to be loud? Imagine this. In 1979, a document called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars surfaced, outlining a chilling new kind of warfare, not fought with bombs, guns, or missiles, but with frequencies, psychological manipulation, and economic control. According to the leaked paper, society itself could be engineered like a machine, predictable and programmable, using silent technologies invisible to the human senses. The strategy was brutally elegant. Manipulate a population's emotions, decisions, and beliefs without them ever realizing it. No protests, no revolutions. Just gradual surrender, hidden behind the illusion of choice, frequencies altering moods, subliminal messaging steering behavior, carefully crafted chaos designed to keep minds distracted and docile. The battlefield is your mind, and the victory is your silent, willing compliance. And here's the unsettling truth. Traces of this strategy may already be embedded in our world. From targeted media narratives to environmental frequency exposure, silent weapons of influence ripple all around us. Control the way people think, and you never have to chain them. Guide their fears and hopes, and they will build their own prisons. Fear, anger, apathy, all can be generated if the right buttons are pushed, if the right invisible weapons are deployed. The document wasn't dismissed as fantasy. It was treated as operational theory, a blueprint for warfare without bloodshed, conquest without resistance. And if it began decades ago, how would you even know? How many of your beliefs were chosen freely, and how many were whispered into your mind long before you learned to protect it? Silent weapons don't announce themselves. They hum quietly, just beneath the noise of modern life, rewriting the battlefield of thought itself. What if the experiments never ended? Imagine this. In the 1970s, the US government publicly apologized for MK-Ultra, a secret program that used drugs, hypnosis, psychological torture, and subliminal techniques to study and control the human mind. The apology was neat, clean, an official ending. But what if that was just the surface story? What if the real experiments didn't stop? They just vanished deeper underground. MK-Ultra's declassified documents only hint at the edges. Remote suggestion, false memory implantation, emotional programming, techniques terrifying in their effectiveness. Techniques that, if perfected, would be too valuable to abandon. After the apology, funding streams didn't dry up. They shifted. Private contractors, shell organizations, hidden budgets, human trials rebranded as therapy, marketing research, resilience studies, methods of persuasion that grew more sophisticated, not less. Imagine if modern media, algorithmic targeting, and psychological profiling are not natural evolutions, but refined tools descended from experiments started decades ago. Imagine if mass influence isn't an accident. It's an invisible continuation of something that never stopped. If MK-Ultra taught one lesson, it's that the mind is malleable, moldable, fragile, the perfect battlefield. If the program survived by becoming untraceable, then today's reality may be shaped by experiments whose existence we're not even allowed to remember. The greatest trick wasn't convincing us the mind could be controlled. It was convincing us the attempts had ended. What if your moments of supposed privacy were nothing but an illusion? Imagine sitting in your living room, phone screen dark, airplane mode on, convinced you are alone. Yet somewhere inside the device, microphones are still alive, listening, waiting, recording fragments of your life you never agreed to share. The unsettling truth is that wake word technology, the very feature that lets your phone respond instantly to your voice, demands one hidden condition. It must always be listening. Consider how personal assistants like Siri, Alexa, and Google are designed to respond in real time. For that to happen, microphones remain active, scanning the environment, analyzing every sound in the background, every accidental whisper, every sigh. Even in airplane mode, even when disabled through settings, some components remain semi-active, capable of hearing. Manufacturers insist that these snippets are processed locally and discarded if irrelevant. But what happens in the split second before that? Imagine confiding your fears, your ambitions, your secret thoughts, believing you are speaking only to yourself, only to realize your phone was harvesting those moments, feeding algorithms designed to predict and manipulate you. Imagine advertisers, corporations, even governments building profiles from what you mutter, what you confess, what you never intended anyone to hear. If your phone is always listening, then true privacy may have died, not with a scream, but with a whisper. Maybe the walls don't have... Imagine speaking to someone you trust, hearing their voice, seeing their face, and never realizing it wasn't them. Real-time deepfake technology has crossed the boundary from science fiction into unsettling reality. With only a basic camera and a powerful processor, a face can now be mapped, animated, and replaced in a live video feed without any visible delay. Voices can be cloned with terrifying accuracy, matching tone, rhythm, even emotional inflection so precisely that even close friends and family can't tell the difference. You could be talking to your boss, your lover, your political leader, and never know it's not truly them. Private groups, corporations, and state actors already experiment with real-time deepfakes, reshaping identity on demand. Imagine negotiations conducted with imposters. Imagine family video calls hijacked without your knowledge. The terrifying part isn't just that this technology exists, it's that detection is falling behind. Tools meant to catch manipulated media lag a full generation behind the fakes themselves. In the wrong hands, real-time deepfakes aren't just lies, they are reality rewired. Trust itself becomes the casualty. If a face and a voice can no longer be trusted, if identity can be worn like a mask, how will we recognize the truth when it speaks to us? Or will truth become just another costume? What if death isn't as immediate as we think? Imagine your heart stopping, your breath slipping away, and yet Inside you, something refuses to quit. Science has uncovered a chilling truth. The body doesn't simply shut down the moment we die, it lingers. Cells continue to function. Some even activate new genes. Life stubbornly clings to the corpse for hours, sometimes for days. It's called the 72-hour death lag. After clinical death, skin cells keep dividing. Brain cells send out chemical signals. In some cases, genetic activity increases, not decreases, as if certain parts of you only wake up once the rest has fallen silent. Why? Are they fighting to save you? Are they executing a hidden biological script written for an emergency we never survive? Or is it something stranger, an instinct deeper than life itself, where parts of the body refuse to acknowledge death until every last shred of energy is drained? Even now, researchers struggle to explain it. Post-mortem cell division, unexpected surges of gene expression, organs refusing to decay as quickly as they should. In some experiments, scientists have been able to coax brain cells from the recently dead into firing again, brief sparks of thought flickering in the darkness. You die, but pieces of you keep trying to live. The terrifying question is, where is the line between alive and dead? If parts of you rebel against death, even after your mind has gone, what does that say about the definition of life? And more disturbingly, what if something else could learn to manipulate that lag, extend it, twist it? Maybe the end isn't as clean as we pretend. Maybe death isn't an instant. Maybe it's a slow, stubborn negotiation between life and the darkness, one desperate cell at a time. What if your emotions weren't hidden inside you, but radiating off you like invisible beacons? Imagine this. Your body's temperature shifts with every feeling you experience. When you lie, your face may heat up in sudden patches. When guilt strikes, your nose and cheeks can cool. Sadness dims the warmth from your eyes. Anger burns around your temples. Every emotion leaves a thermal fingerprint, a silent signature your body cannot help but broadcast. Thermal imaging cameras, once designed for military surveillance, now reveal what human eyes can't. Controlled studies show emotions alter blood flow patterns dramatically. A fake smile leaves colder traces than a genuine one. Anxiety creates a feverish halo around your forehead. Relief melts tension into visible warmth. Guilt chills the face like a subconscious confession, even when your words insist otherwise. This isn't theory. In clinical experiments, researchers detected deception, fear, and sadness simply by reading thermal maps, without a single word spoken. Machines don't get distracted by practiced expressions or nervous laughter. They see your body's silent betrayals in colors and temperatures, reading the truth with unsettling precision. Now, imagine a future where every airport, school, and courthouse silently scans emotional temperatures. Security systems detecting guilt before you utter a word. Retail ads adjusting themselves based on your stress. Governments analyzing crowds, not for weapons, but for unrest, defiance, fear. Emotional privacy would no longer be an expectation. It would be an illusion. Your innermost feelings, once buried deep, would radiate outwards, painted in heat, read by systems you cannot even see. In a world like, what if your body knows the future before your mind does? Imagine this. In a series of peer-reviewed experiments, scientists monitored human pupils while flashing random images on a screen. Violent scenes, serene landscapes, sudden emotional shocks. The images were selected by a computer at random, milliseconds before appearing. And yet, moments before each image appeared, the pupils reacted. They dilated or contracted subtly depending on whether the upcoming image would be disturbing or calm, before the brain had any sensory input, before sight, before thought. Measurable, consistent, repeated. It's called presentiment. The body preparing for a future event that, by all rational standards, it cannot yet know. Some skeptics call it statistical noise. Others argue it's a real biological glimpse through the thin fabric of time. The phenomenon has been detected not just in pupils, but in subtle shifts in heart rate, sweat glands, and brain waves. A ripple effect from a future that hasn't yet arrived. Imagine the implications. If your nervous system reacts to an unseen future, are you truly confined to the present? Or are you, on some hidden level, always slightly ahead of yourself, dancing half a step into tomorrow? If time isn't as rigid as we believe, and consciousness leaks across its boundaries, then reality isn't a straight line. It's a trembling web of near misses and glimpses, where your body listens to signals from moments you haven't lived yet. Maybe you're not guessing the future. Maybe you're remembering it, just early enough to survive. What if your most private frontier, your dreams, was no longer yours? Imagine falling asleep, drifting into the secret world of your subconscious, unaware that silent watchers are quietly taking notes. The unsettling truth is that dream tracking technologies, once dismissed as fantasy, are rapidly evolving. Certain apps claim to help you analyze your sleep, but behind their friendly interfaces, they gather data about your dreams, the emotions you feel, the symbols you imagine, even the fears too deep to. Consider what this truly means. Corporations quietly building subconscious profiles more invasive than anything social media ever touched. Not just your habits, but your secret longings, your hidden traumas, your emotional triggers, mapped and archived without your full awareness. Imagine algorithms able to predict your reactions, manipulate your choices, and influence your future, all based on the whispers of your sleeping mind. Imagine believing your dreams were sacred, a final refuge no one could penetrate, only to learn they have been harvested, monetized, and weaponized. Imagine waking from a nightmare, shaken, raw, vulnerable, while somewhere in a server farm, your fears are being dissected and sold. If your dreams are no longer yours, then the last true sanctuary of freedom, the mind itself, has already fallen. Maybe the future of surveillance isn't about watching your waking life anymore. Maybe it's about owning you before you. Imagine thinking population control was just a conspiracy until you saw the evidence with your own eyes. Throughout history, governments and organizations have implemented sterilization campaigns, agricultural manipulations, and so-called health experiments targeting specific populations. Not speculation. Documented fact. In the mid-20th century, thousands of indigenous women across the Americas were sterilized without consent, hidden behind paperwork labeled voluntary. In parts of Africa and Asia, birth control experiments were tested on vulnerable communities without full disclosure. Seeds were engineered to fail after one generation, forcing farmers into dependency under the promise of improved yields. Failed crops weren't always accidents. Sometimes they were strategies to destabilize, to pressure, to control. Policies cloaked in good intentions hid brutal calculations. Who should live freely? Who should struggle? Who should quietly disappear from the future? Even today, sterilization incentives and genetically modified agricultural programs spark bitter debates about consent, ethics, and hidden motives. Denials flood the headlines, but the historical record remains. Imagine realizing that control doesn't always march in with guns. Sometimes it arrives in lab coats, in aid packages, in smiles promising a better tomorrow. Sometimes the most dangerous wars are fought not on battlefields, but in bodies, in seeds, in silent, irreversible choices made without your permission. What if you're not just you? Imagine moving through life, thinking you're a sealed, separate being, only to realize you've been absorbing fragments of everyone you've ever met. Mirror neurons are the culprits. Hidden deep inside your brain, they fire not just when you act, but when you watch others act. Laugh, cry, rage, and your brain mirrors it as if it were your own. At first, it sounds beautiful. Empathy, connection. But peel back the poetry, and something unsettling emerges. Your brain doesn't just mirror emotions, it leaks identity. It copies postures, voice inflections, belief patterns. Every conversation, every glance, every moment of shared existence has altered you, rewired you. Pieces of them have been stitched into your neural code without your permission. You are not a singular consciousness. You are a patchwork. It's why old habits linger long after friendships end, why trauma echoes years after a moment passes, why strangers' smiles or scowls can shift your mood before you even realize it. You think you're deciding who you are, but parts of you were installed like software you never agreed to download. Scientists can track these changes, subtle shifts in behavior, in thinking, in feeling, all triggered by simple observation. We are walking mosaics, built from shards of every soul we've encountered. Sometimes knowingly, often unknowingly. The terrifying question isn't whether you're influenced, it's how much of you was ever truly yours to begin with. If identity leaks through every crack in our perception, then maybe individuality is an illusion. Maybe you is just the name you give the ever-changing collection of others you've carried inside you all along. What if electricity wasn't just a modern discovery, but a forgotten legacy? Imagine this. In 1938, archaeologists uncovered a strange artifact near Baghdad, a clay jar fitted with a copper cylinder and an iron rod. When reconstructed, it produced a small electric charge. Known today as the Baghdad Battery, it whispers a truth that rattles the foundations of history. If ancient civilizations could create electricity, what else did they understand, and what did we lose? The Baghdad Battery isn't an isolated mystery. Across the ancient world, artifacts hint at a knowledge of electrochemical reactions far older than textbooks admit. Some believe these devices were used to electroplate gold onto jewelry. Others suggest they played roles in sacred rituals, healing practices, or even primitive forms of energy transmission. If so, entire realms of science were discovered, used, and then vanished into oblivion, without leaving behind the language to explain them. Picture temples faintly lit by handmade currents, artisans refining metals with the hum of invisible forces, priests wielding what must have seemed like magic to awestruck eyes. Now, imagine all of it collapsing, through conquest, natural disaster, or deliberate destruction, leaving only fragments that modern scholars struggle to explain, pieces that don't fit the official story. We comfort ourselves by believing knowledge always progresses. But what if it doesn't? What if it loops, rises, collapses, and rises again, leaving behind only riddles for the next civilization to solve? The Baghdad Battery hums a silent warning across time. The future isn't always something we are racing toward. Sometimes, it's buried beneath layers of dust and pride, waiting for someone brave enough to remember the powers we once held and lost. What if the true purpose of DNA testing wasn't to connect you with long-lost relatives, but to map something ancient, something powerful, hidden in your blood? Imagine sending away a sample, expecting a harmless heritage report, and unknowingly feeding a global database designed to trace elite bloodlines through history. The unsettling truth is that the surge in consumer DNA testing may be less about curiosity and more about control. It's about uncovering the hidden threads of genetic royalty, tracing Poe. Consider the implications. By analyzing genetic markers across millions of unsuspecting individuals, corporations, and unseen organizations could reconstruct the world's true ancient family trees. They could expose lost heirs, forgotten dynasties, and the bloodlines that once ruled empires. Power doesn't die. It flows through veins, down through generations, silently shaping economies, religions, wars, and nations. Mapping it could reveal the unseen architects behind centuries of manipulation. Imagine believing you were just another anonymous participant, only to discover that somewhere your DNA was flagged, marked as carrying the echoes of dominance, charisma, leadership, or royal descent. Imagine private elites quietly cataloging every trait, preparing for secret alliances, inheritance wars, and even selective breeding of future rulers. If DNA is the blueprint of destiny, then genetic royalty mapping isn't about celebrating your past. It's about engineering the future, choosing who gets to. Imagine the Earth wasn't a solid sphere, but a layered mystery, hiding vast hollow realms beneath our feet. Strange satellite readings, seismic anomalies, and gravity disturbances hint at massive empty pockets buried deep within the crust, chambers so large that some scientists quietly debate their nature. While mainstream geology explains many voids as magma chambers or ancient caves, legends whisper of something more. Throughout history, explorers ventured to the poles, convinced that hidden entrances led to subterranean worlds. Some vanished without a trace. Expeditions reported magnetic anomalies, instruments going haywire, compasses spinning wildly, radios falling silent. Ancient maps from different civilizations marked forbidden zones at the edges of the known world, regions said to guard passageways into the deep earth. Even modern seismic readings occasionally reveal massive underground voids that conventional science struggles to explain. Officially, they are geological quirks. Unofficially, some researchers wonder if earlier accounts were closer to the truth than we realize. Imagine vast ecosystems, shielded from the surface, evolving in total isolation for millions of years. Imagine entire civilizations buried under miles of rock, waiting or forgotten. Hollow Earth theories aren't just myths. They're questions science still hasn't fully answered. The deeper we dig, the stranger the silence becomes. Imagine waking up every day to a world that feels strangely familiar, yet you can't quite place why. What if I told you it's because your mind is being shaped, not by accident, but by design? Across news broadcasts, blockbuster movies, trending ads, a pattern emerges. The same phrases, the same emotional triggers, repeated endlessly. It's called media echo programming, and it's real. Studies in cognitive neuroscience show that repetition doesn't just influence memory, it rewires your subconscious. Repeated exposure to phrases like new normal, trust the experts, or freedom is dangerous isn't random, it's strategic. Your brain, craving patterns, absorbs these echoes and normalizes them. Over time, the abnormal becomes comfortingly familiar. Look closer. Political slogans are recycled across decades. Advertising jingles from your childhood still pop into your mind uninvited. Movies seem different, yet they retell the same narratives of fear, hope, conformity. It's not lazy storytelling, it's engineered familiarity. When you hear a phrase enough times, you stop questioning its origin. You stop noticing the manipulation. Psychological experiments like the illusory truth effect prove it. If you hear a lie often enough, it starts to feel true. No evidence needed, just repetition. Now imagine that power aimed at billions daily. We're not talking conspiracy, we're talking measurable scientific fact. Subtle programming doesn't ask you to believe. It teaches your instincts what to trust, what to fear, who to obey. Echoes program your dreams, your choices, your future. The world you think you see, it's a symphony of planted ideas. The question is, how much of your mind still belongs to you? What if a voice could appear in your mind, and it wasn't yours? Imagine walking through a war zone, hearing commands, warnings, even threats, whispered inside your skull. No speakers, no radios, no visible source. Just a voice, clear, undeniable, telling you what to do. This isn't science fiction. It's called Project S-Quad, a real U.S. military experiment exploring how to beam sound directly into a person's mind using microwaves. The technology bends your reality without you ever knowing it. A focused energy weapon triggers vibrations inside your skull's bones, bypassing ears entirely. You don't hear the voice, you experience it, as if it's your own thought, or the voice of something greater. During its early tests, soldiers reportedly heard instructions they couldn't ignore. Some were paralyzed by fear. Others obeyed instantly, not realizing the voice wasn't internal. Psychological warfare reached a new level, implanting not just fear, but invisible, inescapable commands. Imagine what that power means. Governments could crush uprisings without firing a shot, sabotage enemies from within, shatter a person's sense of self until they no longer know which thoughts are theirs. Even more chilling, some researchers dreamed of simulating divine encounters, broadcasting messages from God directly into targeted minds. Religious fervor, blind obedience, existential terror, all triggered by invisible beams, all without a single shot fired. You'd never see the weapon, you'd never hear the machine. Only the message and the belief that it came from inside you. The most dangerous control isn't physical, it's cognitive. It's slipping an idea so deep into your mind that you mistake it for your own. And by the time you realize the thought was never yours, it's already too late. What if the wilderness wasn't just dangerous, but hiding something far more unsettling? Imagine this. Every year, thousands of people vanish from national parks and forests across the world. They step into the trees and are never seen again. No bodies, no clues, no final moments to piece together. In many cases, even the official records are sealed, missing, or suspiciously incomplete. Patterns start to emerge if you look close enough. People vanish near boulder fields, near bodies of water, near sudden weather shifts. Tracking dogs often behave strangely, circling, refusing to follow the scent, or lying down in confusion. Sometimes victims are found miles away, barefoot, in areas so rugged and remote that even seasoned rescuers can barely reach them. No footprints, no signs of panic, just silence. Researchers have spent decades trying to map the disappearances. Clusters form, tight, eerie constellations across certain landscapes. Some missing persons are young children later found alive in impossible locations, too far for them to have reached alone. Others are expert hikers, military veterans, survivalists, people who should have known better than to simply vanish. Yet they do. And what's more chilling? The official resistance. Why are so many case files incomplete? Why are park services quick to close investigations or withhold documents? What is so dangerous or so valuable that even the questions must be buried. Maybe the forest isn't just a collection of trees and rivers. Maybe it's a threshold, a membrane stretched thin between worlds. And maybe, when you step just wrong, when conditions align in a way no map or compass can predict, you cross over. And once you do, the rules change. You can scream, you can run, but something has already decided you won't be coming back. Imagine realizing the fiction you once laughed at was quietly laying blueprints for your future. Predictive programming is the unsettling phenomenon where fictional media foreshadows real-world events with disturbing accuracy. In 1898, a novel titled Futility described a ship called Titan sinking after striking an iceberg, 14 years before the Titanic disaster. In 1999, a cartoon eerily portrayed an attack on tall buildings resembling the events of 9/11. Films imagined wearable tech, smart cities, even pandemics long before they entered headlines. Skeptics call it coincidence, but others ask, what if it's deliberate? Predictive programming, they argue, softens public resistance by making once unthinkable scenarios feel familiar. When the event finally happens, it feels less shocking, almost expected. Psychologists know that repeated exposure to ideas, even fictional ones, changes how our brains react to them. Familiarity breeds acceptance. In some cases, fiction could act as warning, an artist glimpsing trends before others see them. In other cases, it might be silent permission, nudging society toward outcomes chosen long ago. Think of the countless dystopian futures, the normalization of surveillance, the blurring of human and machine. What if imagination isn't always harmless? What if some stories were never just stories, but blueprints handed down quietly, shaping your mind long before the future arrives? Imagine a world where your thoughts aren't private, where even a flicker of emotion triggers a silent response from machines around you. What if I told you that future isn't far away? It's already unfolding? Companies have filed patents for neural interfaces that can read your brainwaves and emotional states. Not science fiction, not theory. It's real, it's documented, and it's accelerating faster than most people realize. In 2018, Facebook filed a patent for technology that could detect emotional states by monitoring brain activity and muscle movements. Other tech giants are racing alongside them. They imagine a future filled with wearable sensors or even invisible implants that silently listen to your mood swings, your cravings, your hidden impulses. Advertisers dream of this future, a world where they don't need to persuade you. They simply detect when you're most vulnerable and strike. Imagine scrolling through a feed. An ad doesn't just guess that you're feeling lonely, it senses it. It adapts instantly, offering products, services, and ideologies tailored to your emotional weakness in that moment. Imagine walking into a store and sensors feeling your rising anxiety, then steering you toward purchases meant to soothe you. You didn't say a word. You didn't have to. Your brain did. Scientific studies have already proven the groundwork. EEG headbands monitor emotional arousal. Brain-computer interfaces reconstruct images from neural signals alone. If researchers can rebuild what you're seeing in your mind, how far are they from rebuilding how you feel? How long before the walls inside your mind crumble under corporate ambition? The boundary between influence and control is vanishing. If they can feel your mind, they can steer your reality. They won't just market products, they'll market entire versions of your life. The next battlefield isn't your wallet, it's your consciousness. Imagine a world where reality itself is a stage, where the most emotional, chaotic events you witness are not just shaped, but sometimes fully orchestrated. Whistleblowers across different sectors have exposed the existence of crisis actors, individuals trained to simulate victims, witnesses, and even perpetrators during emergencies. Real court testimonies, leaked documents, and media slip-ups revealed shocking moments where the same faces appeared across unrelated tragedies. One woman was photographed at 3 different disasters, always positioned as a grieving bystander. Another man gave interviews in separate terror incidents, each time adopting a new name. While officials dismiss these patterns as coincidence, insiders claim it's deliberate, a tool to control narratives, sway public opinion, and justify sweeping policies under the banner of public safety. In the age of instant news, emotions dictate truth faster than facts. An image of a crying child or a terrified survivor embeds itself in your mind before logic can intervene. Some whistleblowers paid dearly for exposing this. Careers destroyed, lives threatened, reputations shattered, all to bury inconvenient realities beneath the label of conspiracy theory. When the truth is wrapped in layers of absurdity, it becomes easier to mock than to investigate. Skepticism is weaponized against itself. But the pattern persists. Identical witnesses, pre-scripted reactions, coordinated messaging across media outlets, all hint at manipulation so sophisticated, it blurs fiction and fact until they become indistinguishable. The question is no longer whether narratives are shaped, but how much of what you believe was ever truly yours to decide. What if humanity once knew everything, only to lose it all in a single silent collapse? Imagine waking up one morning, sensing a deep, aching emptiness where knowledge used to live. Across the world, in myths and ancient stories, there are whispers of great forgettings. Times when humans, once masters of sciences, arts, even the secrets of existence itself, simply forgot. The Aboriginal dream time speaks of knowledge lost in ages past. Hindu texts describe cycles where humanity reaches impossible heights, only to crumble into ignorance. Even Plato wrote of Atlantis, a civilization so advanced it seemed mythological, wiped from memory as if by design. What if these aren't just metaphors? What if humanity has already risen and fallen many times, each peak erased not by war or disease, but by the mind itself collapsing inward? Collective amnesia, triggered by trauma, cosmic events, or forces we still don't understand. Modern neuroscience shows how easily memory can be manipulated, suppressed, even destroyed. A shock powerful enough could erase not just individual memories, but collective history, a psychic extinction, a mental reboot. Maybe the ancient wonders we stumble upon, impossible architecture, lost technologies, aren't signs of primitive brilliance, but remnants of what we once knew before the forgetting swept it all away. The terrifying thought is that it could happen again. Maybe it already is. Maybe each surge of information, each overwhelming flood of data, pushes us closer to another forgetting, buried under noise, lost in distraction, eroded by design. We think of ourselves as the peak of progress, but what if we are just the survivors of a story we were made to forget? What if true history isn't behind us, but sleeping inside us, waiting to be remembered? What if the air you breathe could be silently weaponized? Imagine this. Certain frequencies have the potential to interfere with molecular processes, including the way your body absorbs oxygen. It's not science fiction. Specific energy bands can excite or disturb molecular bonds. And, in an unregulated environment flooded with invisible waves, the risks grow quietly, unnoticed. 5G technology, by itself, isn't evil. It's a tool. Faster connections, smarter cities, instant information, but tools depend on how they're used, and more importantly, how carefully they're controlled. Some 5G frequencies operate in millimeter wave bands, frequencies that interact differently with biological tissues compared to lower bands. Most safety studies focus on heat effects, ignoring subtler biological interactions, like how electromagnetic fields might alter cell membranes, blood oxygenation, or enzyme function. Imagine a future where frequency environments aren't designed for safety, but for dominance. Military experiments have already tested directed energy for crowd control. What if similar technologies hidden in plain sight subtly affected your health? A city could shimmer with invisible networks that boost productivity, or quietly suppress populations by making them weaker, foggier, more compliant. The real danger isn't 5G itself. It's deploying powerful technologies without understanding or without caring about long-term effects. It's saturating every environment with energy fields optimized for profit, not for life. Frequencies can heal, frequencies can also harm. And when the air itself becomes a battlefield, you may never even realize you're under attack until it's too late. Imagine if every thought you had left fingerprints on the physical world. In Japan, researcher Dr. Masaru Emoto conducted experiments suggesting that human emotions could alter the structure of frozen water crystals. Samples exposed to positive words like love or gratitude formed intricate, beautiful patterns. Samples exposed to hate or fear produced chaotic, fractured shapes. Critics argue about Emoto's methods, yet the concept remains haunting. Consciousness might imprint onto matter itself, Other studies hint that focused intention could subtly affect random systems, a phenomenon called micropsychokinesis. While mainstream science demands more rigorous proof, the implications are staggering. If thoughts can influence water, and our bodies are mostly water, what invisible marks are we leaving on ourselves, each other, the very air around us? Imagine words carrying weight beyond emotion, physically etching reality at microscopic levels. Prayers, curses, music, conversations, all sculpting hidden landscapes we cannot see. What if the universe isn't indifferent? What if it listens, responds, and reflects the echoes of our minds in every drop of rain, every snowflake, every breath? Maybe reality isn't just observed. Maybe it's participated in, molded by invisible forces we barely understand, forces flowing from the deepest chambers of our hearts and minds. What if the world you walk across every day hides a network far older than civilization itself? Imagine ancient builders who mapped something invisible yet powerful, a natural energy grid woven through the earth. Across continents, monuments like Stonehenge, the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, and Angkor Wat line up with uncanny precision, as if guided by an ancient blueprint. Coincidence? Or did they tap into something we have long forgotten? Researchers studying ley lines noticed that sacred sites, temples, and even ancient cities fall along straight paths that span thousands of miles. Some dismissed it as random chance, but mathematical modeling shows these alignments are statistically improbable. Cultures with no known contact built according to the same hidden geometry. How could that be? Some scientists suggest Earth has natural electromagnetic pathways, similar to neural connections in a brain. Our planet hums with resonant frequencies, Schumann resonances, pulsing invisibly around us. What if ancient civilizations detected these patterns? What if the monuments were not random constructions, but amplifiers, conductors designed to interact with Earth's living currents? There's more. Modern satellite imaging revealed strange geometric alignments stretching across continents, far beyond what eyes alone could perceive. It's almost as if ancient cultures sensed the planet's neural network and built nodes to connect with it, shrines of stone to link mind and earth together. If this is true, we haven't just lost knowledge. We've severed ourselves from a system that once elevated human potential. We forgot how to listen to the pulse beneath our feet. The real question isn't whether ley lines exist. The question is, what did humanity lose when we stopped feeling them? What if one day you simply vanished? Not physically, but digitally. Imagine waking up to find no trace of yourself online. No bank records, no medical files, no birth certificate, no ID. Your phone refuses to unlock. Your cards are declined. Friends search your name and find nothing. It's not science fiction. With centralized databases, biometric IDs, and cloud servers dominating the modern world, your existence is now fragile, a thread of code woven through invisible systems. Whistleblowers and cybersecurity experts have warned for years. With high-level access, a single keystroke can erase a person. Governments already use deletion tactics against dissidents. In 2017, a Chinese citizen who criticized local authorities found their health record and bank credentials erased overnight. In the West, predictive AI algorithms can quietly shadow ban, deprioritize, and bury individuals without needing a courtroom. What begins as deplatforming evolves into something darker, de-existence, no passport renewal, no hospital admitting you, no voting rights. Even surveillance cameras might not recognize your face if your biometric profile is wiped. Without data, you are legally invisible. Some might argue that going off-grid is freedom, but forced erasure is exile, a silent execution of identity without trial, without defense. If memory is stored in machines, and machines forget you, what are you? In a future where databases define reality, the most terrifying weapon may not be bullets, but the delete key. What if your body could betray you in the most terrifying way imaginable? Imagine sitting peacefully, reading a book, sleeping, talking with friends, and without warning, your body ignites from within. Not a spark, not a flame, a roaring fire fueled by something science still cannot fully explain. Spontaneous human combustion. It sounds like folklore, but the cases are real, hundreds reported. Victims reduced to ash, sometimes leaving behind nothing but charred limbs and a blackened outline. Yet, the surroundings remain strangely untouched, chairs unburned, furniture barely singed, floors intact. The fire seems to obey no natural rules. Scientists have theories. The wick effect suggests that fat tissue can fuel a slow, smoldering fire if the skin is breached. But that doesn't explain the intensity. It doesn't explain why there's no visible ignition source, no accelerants, no struggle. Some cases are even stranger. People found burned to ash while clothing around the burns remains intact. Internal organs vaporized without external damage. In some reports, blue flames were seen dancing above the bodies, silent and cold. Is it chemical? Biological? An unknown atmospheric phenomenon? Or is it something more frightening, something dormant inside all of us, waiting for the wrong moment, the wrong alignment, the wrong unseen spark? Throughout history, spontaneous combustion has been whispered about with fear. Some believed it was divine punishment. Others said it was emotional rage made physical. But science, for all its power, has no final answer. The truth is, it's still happening, still unsolved, still waiting in the margins of human existence, where fire and flesh meet under conditions we barely understand. And the most chilling thought, you might never feel it coming. Imagine a substance so alien, so alive, it blurs the line between biology and nightmare. Reports of a mysterious black goo have surfaced across classified government documents, alien contact claims, and shadowy research programs. Described as an oil-like liquid that moves with intention, reacts to human presence, and sometimes exhibits sentient behavior, black goo has been whispered about for decades. Some accounts suggest it can merge with biological tissue, rewriting DNA, adapting organisms into hybrid forms. Declassified military files hint at encounters with similar materials found near impact sites, with properties no known science can fully explain. In some alleged alien abduction cases, witnesses report black fluids entering their bodies, leaving them changed, physically, psychologically, even genetically. Was it technology? Was it life? Or something that defies both categories? Researchers who investigated too closely sometimes disappeared, or retracted findings under strange circumstances. Even in ancient lore, stories speak of sentient substances, black rivers that whispered, cursed lands that swallowed life. What if black goo isn't a new discovery? What if it's been visiting or waiting long before we had the language to describe it? A silent intelligence, not of flesh or machine, but something else entirely. And what if we've only glimpsed the beginning of its true purpose? What if time could slip through your fingers without you even realizing it? Imagine driving down an empty road, feeling a blink pass, and suddenly it's 4 hours later, the sun has shifted and your fuel gauge has dropped. Missing time syndrome isn't a myth. It's a real documented phenomenon reported by thousands worldwide, and a disturbing pattern emerges. Many of these events happen suspiciously close to military installations. Witnesses describe the same eerie sensation. A strange hum in the air, a flash of light, a momentary distortion of reality. Then, emptiness. Hours gone, days even, no memory, no explanation. Some dismiss it as fatigue, dissociation, or elaborate hoaxes. But psychological evaluations often show these people aren't delusional. They experienced something, and whatever it was left scars far deeper than confusion. In declassified military documents, experiments involving electromagnetic fields, time perception distortion, and mind-altering frequencies are not conspiracy theories. They are cold, hard fact. Project MKUltra, Project Montauk, research that admits the human brain's internal clock can be manipulated. Now, ask yourself, if experiments can alter your sense of reality, could they also forcibly erase hours of your life? Modern studies show certain electromagnetic environments disrupt memory formation. Exposure to strong EM fields can induce amnesia, false memories, and altered perception of time itself. Coincidence that many missing time cases occur near radar bases, classified airfields, or experimental zones? Or is it evidence of something no one is willing to admit? Missing time syndrome isn't science fiction. It's a scientific anomaly still unfolding in silence. The real terror isn't just losing hours. It's wondering, what happened in the hours you lost? Imagine closing your eyes and seeing across oceans, through walls, into the most secure facilities on Earth. During the Cold War, the CIA wasn't just building better satellites. They were building psychic warriors. Under the top-secret Stargate project, Remote viewers were trained to gather intelligence by sheer mind power. They weren't magicians or frauds. They were soldiers, scientists, and civilians pushed into realms science barely understood. And sometimes, they succeeded. One viewer described the interior of a hidden Soviet submarine base so precisely that satellite imaging was used only to confirm his vision. Another sketched the layout of a hostage location in real time, saving lives when physical reconnaissance failed. Declassified records show dozens of cases where remote viewing provided intelligence no traditional method could reach. The skeptics dismiss it as chance, selective reporting, or flawed protocols. But when generals and analysts kept returning to psychic reports after satellites and spies came up empty, questions grew. How could an unarmed mind pierce steel doors and continents? Is consciousness itself untethered, a field stretching far beyond our bodies? Even now, the full capabilities and limits of remote viewing remain classified. What was publicized was likely the least effective portion. If some missions were better than satellites, imagine what stayed hidden in vaults, deep in the archives. The human mind may be a tool far stranger and more dangerous than any machine we've built. What if your mind was solving the hardest puzzles of your life while you slept, and you never even noticed? Imagine a supercomputer buried deep inside you, one that never shuts down, never tires, and never forgets a pattern. That's your subconscious. It weaves information, emotion, and memory into answers you can't find while awake. Scientists have long documented a strange phenomenon: people waking from dreams with solutions to impossible problems. Dmitry Mendeleev, for example, dreamed of the entire periodic table, its elements falling perfectly into place. Otto Louis solved a Nobel Prize-winning experiment in a dream. Even Einstein credited thought dreams for his breakthroughs in relativity. Your subconscious isn't just processing. It's actively computing possibilities, testing outcomes, and offering you answers. But there's a catch. Modern life crushed the bridge between you and this hidden intelligence. Constant noise, endless screens, no stillness. We stopped listening. In ancient cultures, dream incubation was a practice. People entered temples asking questions before sleep, believing the mind, if respected, would answer. And often, it did. Today, we dismiss dreams as random noise, forgetting that breakthroughs, guidance, even warnings can emerge from the dreamscape. If you asked your subconscious a question tonight, would you recognize the answer when it arrived? Or would you scroll past it, half awake, another lost whisper from the genius inside you? Your supercomputer still runs, humming silently in the background, waiting. You just have to remember how to hear it. What if the thoughts you think were never truly yours? Imagine watching a movie, laughing, crying, feeling chills, and somewhere deep inside, reacting to something you never consciously saw. Hidden frames, subliminal messages, silent invaders slipped between the beats of the story, too fast for your eye to catch, but not too fast for your brain to absorb. It sounds like conspiracy, but it's real. In the 1950s, researchers tested flashing words like drink Coca-Cola or hungry, eat popcorn for just milliseconds during film screenings. Sales reportedly soared. The public was outraged. Laws were passed. Subliminal advertising was banned, or so we're told, but the truth is subtler and more dangerous. The crude flashing words may be gone, but the idea never died. Instead, it evolved. Modern subliminals are buried in colors, patterns, camera angles, even editing rhythms. Emotional cues designed to steer your feelings without your permission. A single frame of terror spliced into a children's film. A fraction of a second flash of a brand logo during an action sequence. A carefully engineered sound too low for you to hear, but strong enough to sway your emotions. You don't notice. You can't fight it. Your brain fills the gap before you're even aware the gap existed. Your thoughts slide subtly, imperceptibly, toward conclusions you never truly questioned. Advertisers use it. Politicians have explored it. Psychological operations have perfected it. And now, with deep learning algorithms analyzing your reactions in real time, these hidden manipulations grow sharper, faster, more tailored, almost impossible to detect. You believe you're making choices. You believe you're feeling genuine emotions. But part of you, the oldest, most automatic part, might be following invisible instructions you never agreed to. The scariest part? By the time you realize it's happening, it's already worked. Imagine discovering that beneath every tree, every storm, every living creature, there's a hidden code, an ancient rhythm guiding life itself. The Fibonacci sequence: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, emerges everywhere. In the spiral arms of galaxies, in the swirl of hurricanes, in the curves of seashells, in the branching of your own blood vessels. Evolution isn't random. It follows this mathematical dance-like choreography written into the bones of the universe. DNA molecules coil in structures aligned with Fibonacci proportions. Flower petals unfold in Fibonacci spirals to maximize sunlight absorption. Pine cones, pineapples, even storms over distant oceans obey this secret pattern. It's as if nature herself is singing a song we forgot how to hear, a song about beauty, efficiency, survival, all woven through a sequence born from simple addition. But why? How did a mathematical pattern born from adding two numbers together become the blueprint for life, from microscopic cells to the colossal spin of galaxies? Some believe Fibonacci numbers optimize energy flow, guiding natural selection not through chaos, but through hidden perfection. Others whisper that we're seeing fingerprints, designs older than stars, embedded in the very logic of existence. What if evolution isn't blind chance? What if it's a slow, spiraling climb toward forms that already exist inside the fabric of reality, waiting to be unlocked? What else lies encoded in the numbers around us, just beyond the reach of our ordinary senses? What if everything you've ever done, everything you will do, and everything you're doing now is already written, playing out simultaneously across an unseen landscape? Imagine realizing that time isn't a river flowing forward, but a vast terrain where every moment exists forever. Modern physics calls it block time, and it's no longer just theory. It's gaining support from some of the brightest minds in science. According to the theory of relativity, time isn't separate from space. Together, they form a fabric called space-time, and your movement through it isn't like a train track. It's more like a frozen tapestry. Your past, your present, your future, they aren't moving. They simply are. You experience them sequentially because your consciousness slices through space-time like a knife through a loaf of bread, tasting one thin piece at a time. Einstein himself hinted at it. When his close friend died, he wrote that death was an illusion because the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Think about that. Every choice you regret, every dream you chase, every moment you dread, they are all happening right now, forever, locked into the structure of the universe. Quantum mechanics further muddies the waters. Experiments show that particles can influence each other across time, that actions taken in the future seem to reach back into the past. It suggests a universe where causality is not linear, but entangled in a way the human brain can barely comprehend. If block time is real, then your life isn't a journey. It's a sculpture, complete, whole, unchanging. The future isn't waiting. It's already there, and so is the past. The only thing truly moving is you, the observer, the dreamer, forever falling through a masterpiece carved from eternity. What if the most powerful influence in your life was something you couldn't even hear? Imagine this. Ultrasonic frequencies, sounds just above the threshold of human hearing, can alter your mood, hijack your attention, and even provoke aggression. You don't notice them. You can't block them. But your nervous system does. Your subconscious listens, even when your ears don't. And these sounds are already being used in stores, stadiums, offices, and public spaces, all without your consent. Studies have shown that specific ultrasonic tones can trigger anxiety, nausea, unease, or sudden irritation. Others cause disorientation, fatigue, or loss of concentration. Teenagers are especially sensitive. Some businesses use devices like the Mosquito to emit high-pitched tones adults can't hear, but which drive younger people away. But that's just the beginning. The technology has grown more advanced, so have its purposes. Retail environments now experiment with ultrasonic soundscapes to influence shopper behavior. Corporate offices use them to enhance alertness or suppress restlessness. Governments have tested directed ultrasonic weapons for crowd control, dispersing groups with sounds no one can hear but everyone feels. These systems are invisible, undetectable, and fully operational, even if you're unaware. Now, imagine a world calibrated not by visible rules, but by sonic manipulation. A hallway that makes you anxious. a waiting room that dulls your senses, a crosswalk that keeps you moving with a pressure you can't name, a soundscape that shapes your behavior without a single audible note. The age of acoustic control is here. You can't hear it, but you'll feel it. And by the time you question it, it may already have rewritten the way you think. What if déjà vu isn't just a glitch, but proof your mind is syncing across invisible layers of reality? Imagine your brain isn't operating in just one timeline, but many, running parallel simulations, processing infinite outcomes, scanning futures and pasts you barely perceive. Sometimes, for just a moment, the split-second processing catches up. You experience it as déjà vu. Scientists have tried to explain déjà vu as misfires of memory, small errors in the hippocampus, but those theories feel too simple for something so profound. What if, instead, déjà vu is your brain aligning timelines, confirming that reality right now is matching one of the infinite paths it predicted? A real-time synchronization, a glimpse behind the veil. Think about it. Your mind absorbs 11 million bits of information every second. You consciously process only 40, the rest isn't lost. It's filtered, categorized, stored. Your subconscious could be running a million tiny simulations at all times, predicting what's about to happen, feeling what's about to shift. And sometimes, the conscious and unconscious align so perfectly that it feels like you've lived this moment before, because in some way, you have. Déjà vu could be your internal systems pinging you, telling you, this is the path, you've crossed it before, you're right where you need to be. Or, it could be a warning that the simulation is slipping, a momentary error your mind notices but your body can't explain. A ghost signal from a parallel track. The next time you feel it, that eerie, electric moment where the present folds in on itself, don't brush it off. It might be the truest thing your brain has ever whispered to you. What if the real threat isn't outside you, but already living inside your mind? Imagine carrying a silent companion everywhere you go, a version of yourself made of every suppressed emotion, every forbidden thought, every part you forced into the dark because it didn't fit the person you were supposed to be. This is the shadow self, and it is always watching. You don't see it during the day. You bury it beneath politeness, routines, masks you've worn so long they feel like skin. But the shadow never sleeps. Every resentment you swallow, every fear you deny, every wild instinct you crush, builds pressure inside it, shaping a version of you that grows louder the more you try to silence it. Psychologists warn us, repression doesn't erase, it stores, it sharpens, it waits. And one day, when the mask slips, when you're exhausted, enraged, overwhelmed, the shadow steps forward. You say things you don't remember thinking. You hurt people you love without knowing why. You make choices that seem alien to you later, wondering, who was I in that moment? It wasn't someone else. It was the hidden you. The version you fed for years without realizing it. The scarier part, the shadow isn't evil. It's honest, brutally honest. It shows you the desires you pretend you don't have, the rage you swear you're above, the loneliness you pretend doesn't ache at night. The more you ignore it, the stronger it becomes. And when it acts, you may not recognize who you've become, because the person you thought you were was always incomplete. The shadow waits patiently, collecting the pieces you discard, building itself from your denials. It doesn't need to fight you. It only needs you to keep pretending it isn't real. And by the time it surfaces, it's not asking for permission anymore. Imagine living inside a prison so perfect you forget the walls even exist. Reality bias, the tendency to reject information that doesn't match your worldview, is not just a flaw, it's a cage wired into your brain. When confronted with truths that threaten your beliefs, cognitive dissonance floods you with discomfort. Your mind doesn't seek truth, it seeks relief. It reshapes facts, ignores contradictions, and rewrites memories, not to bring you closer to reality, but to preserve your fragile inner world. This psychological glitch isn't random. It's been weaponized. Governments, corporations, cults, they know that if you control the narrative inside someone's head, you don't need to chain their body. They will defend their own prison. They will laugh at evidence, attack messengers, cling to illusions even as they collapse. Reality bias keeps societies stable, but it also keeps them blind. The most dangerous truths aren't hidden by force. They're hidden by making you unwilling to see them. by conditioning you to reject anything that doesn't fit the comforting story you've been sold. What if some of the most important realities lie just beyond the walls of your bias? What if breaking free means enduring the unbearable discomfort of realizing you were wrong? Freedom doesn't come from being right. It comes from being willing to be wrong, and choosing to see anyway. Imagine waking up knowing you've lost something, but having no idea what it was. What if erasing memories wasn't just a plot for movies, but a real practice science? Across decades, evidence shows that drugs, frequencies, and trauma have been systematically used to fracture and delete memories, sometimes by accident, often by design, and sometimes with terrifying precision. Declassified documents from CIA projects like MKUltra confirm that chemical compounds were tested to intentionally erase memory. Substances like scopolamine and midazolam can wipe short-term memory clean, leaving a person compliant, blank, and unaware. This isn't science fiction. It's historical record. Experiments not only happened, they succeeded far more than most people know. But the story darkens. Research into electromagnetic frequencies reveals that targeted energy fields can disrupt the brain's ability to store memories. In animal trials, and rumored covert human ones, specific frequencies weaken synaptic connections, literally erasing learned behaviors. Your mind isn't as durable as you think. Under precise external influence, it can be bent, fractured, even wiped. Trauma, too, is weaponized with clinical efficiency. Severe emotional shock can fragment the mind, burying entire events so deeply that victims can no longer consciously retrieve them. This technique wasn't an accident. It was studied, refined, and applied to create individuals who wouldn't or couldn't remember what had been done to them. Imagine the implications. Memory is identity. Strip away memories, and you don't just forget an event, you lose a piece of your soul. The chilling truth is that real mind erasers aren't futuristic ideas. They exist. They've been used. And somewhere, quietly, maybe even now, they continue to rewrite reality, one mind at a time. What if your mind was never fully yours? Imagine every opinion you defend, every emotion you feel was shaped before you ever had a chance to question it. From birth, media, parents, teachers, culture, all began feeding silent commands into your brain. Tiny seeds planted as truths you never chose. Over time, you mistook them for your own ideas. Cognitive science proves that repeated exposure forms belief structures unconsciously. Advertisements don't ask permission. They bypass logic, embedding desires straight into your instincts. Political slogans are designed to echo endlessly in your mind until disagreement feels unnatural. Even casual conversations, television scripts, and childhood bedtime stories layer your subconscious with invisible instructions about who you are, what you fear, and what you should want. Studies show that the majority of our daily thoughts are automatic, reflexive loops based on prior programming, not genuine reflection. The myth of original thought becomes comforting fiction. Every decision you make might simply be a reaction to commands issued years ago. True rebellion, then, isn't just rejecting authority. It's painstakingly unlearning what you were taught to believe was you. But how do you escape a maze you can't see? How do you find the real you beneath a lifetime of echoes? Most terrifying of all, you might not even realize the moment your mind stopped being yours, because it never truly was. What if your beliefs weren't as solid as you think, but shifted with something as simple as the temperature around you? Imagine sitting in a warm room, feeling relaxed, comfortable. Scientists discovered that under these conditions, you're far more likely to rate ideas, people, even controversial topics more favorably. In a colder room, you judge harsher. Doubt creeps in. Distance grows. This isn't theory. In controlled experiments, participants unknowingly change their opinions based purely on ambient temperature. The brain, it turns out, doesn't separate physical warmth from emotional warmth. Warmth signals safety. Cold signals threat. Your subconscious reads the environment, then adjusts your emotions accordingly, rewriting what you believe in real time without your permission. Now think bigger. How many decisions have been shaped by a carefully crafted climate you didn't notice? Courtrooms, negotiation rooms, interviews, even political events. Temperature has been a silent weapon. Emotional manipulation by atmosphere. Not through words, not through logic. Through the primal systems wired into your survival. You are not just thinking. You are feeling the temperature of the world, and letting that feeling sculpt your reality. And unless you become conscious of it, every idea you accept, every person you trust, might be less about truth and more about the thermostat set behind closed doors. The next time you form a strong opinion, pause. Is it really your thought, or did the room think it for you? What if the sound of your voice was worth more than your words? Imagine speaking casually to a device, calling customer support, or chatting on a call, and somewhere, unseen systems are analyzing your every syllable, not for what you say, but for how you say it. Your voice print, unique as a fingerprint, rich with biometric data, impossible to fake. Banks use it to verify you. Advertisers use it to profile you. Machines use it to predict you. The tremble in your tone, the rush in your breathing, the edge in your laughter, they aren't just heard. They're measured, stored, sold. Emotion detection algorithms listen closer than any human ear. They can tell when you're anxious, when you're excited, when you're lying, when you're tired enough to be vulnerable. And with that knowledge, they shape what you're offered. What do you see next? What price you're shown? Whether you're flagged as a risk? Whether you're marked as easy to persuade? This isn't science fiction. It's happening now, woven invisibly into everyday technology. Your voice print is a biometric ID you can't change. It betrays you even when you think you're calm. It whispers your internal states louder than your words ever could. And once it's captured, it doesn't need your consent to be reused, resold, repurposed. The systems you interact with learn you, deeper, faster, and more invisibly than ever before. Your accent, your hesitation, your micro-expressions bleeding into the music of your speech. In a world where emotion itself is a currency, your voice becomes a key. Not to open doors, but to open you. Every hesitation mapped, every excitement exploited. The scariest part? You can't stop your voice from revealing you. And by the time you realize what you've given away, it's already been monetized, traded, and weaponized against you. Imagine someone reading your thoughts, not with wires attached to your skull, but from a distance, without you even knowing. Modern neuroscience has uncovered a chilling truth. With sensitive enough equipment, brainwaves can be remotely detected and partially decoded. Researchers have already reconstructed rough images of what people are looking at simply by analyzing their neural signals. No implants, no physical contact required. Sensors tuned to electromagnetic whispers of the brain can catch patterns, emotions, even glimpses of visual memories. Experiments using machine learning have recreated blurry images of faces seen by participants just by monitoring brain activity. And the technology is accelerating. Higher resolutions, deeper pattern recognition. Soon, it may no longer be about fuzzy pictures, but real-time thoughts, emotions, decisions, captured invisibly from meters away. Privacy, once thought to be a matter of walls and passwords, may be slipping through frequencies your brain naturally emits. Imagine interrogations without words, marketing targeted to the emotions you haven't even expressed, governments tracking dissent not through speech but through thought patterns. The mind, once the last refuge of freedom, is becoming an open broadcast. And the scariest part? You won't feel it happening. Imagine driving into a town where your phone dies without warning, your GPS spirals into nonsense, and every attempt to connect to the outside world collapses into static. What if I told you that there are places like this, scattered quietly across the world, zones of silence, where media blackout isn't just an accident, but an intentional barrier? These aren't deep wildernesses or underground bases. Some of them are hidden in plain sight, and those who investigate too deeply often find themselves warned or silenced. Governments openly acknowledge technologies that can block, jam, and erase signals. Some use them to protect critical communications. Others cloak secret installations. But not all blackouts come with an explanation. Some appear without notice, without infrastructure, without any visible reason. Residents whisper of strange aircraft, unmarked vehicles, and officials who visit, then vanish. Scientific analysis shows it's simple to create local dead zones using electromagnetic suppression fields. No wires needed, no towers visible. Just pockets of space where the modern world simply stops working. But the chilling question remains, why here? Why near small towns, forests, abandoned airfields? Why maintain zones where people vanish from digital existence for hours or longer? Whistleblowers hint at clandestine projects, weapon tests, psychological experiments, breaches in reality itself. Others whisper about containment fields, zones built not to keep people out, but to keep something else trapped inside. Without signals, without cameras, without proof, the unimaginable becomes possible. The real danger isn't the silence. It's the certainty that somewhere, reality bends, and no one will ever know. Imagine that spiritual states aren't just feelings, but measurable realities. Scientists studying monks, shamans, and mystics discovered something astonishing. During deep meditation or trance, their brains consistently enter specific frequency patterns: gamma waves of intense focus, theta waves of deep intuition. These aren't myths or metaphors. EEG machines capture these frequencies with stunning reliability across cultures, practices, and belief systems. A Tibetan monk in a Himalayan temple and a shaman deep in the Amazon rainforest both reach nearly identical neurological signatures when touching what they describe as the infinite. Studies at Harvard and MIT revealed that experienced meditators could deliberately shift their brain states, generating bursts of high-frequency gamma waves associated with enhanced memory, compassion, and sensory integration. Scientists tried replicating these brain waves artificially using neurofeedback devices and found that even machines could guide untrained individuals into these higher states temporarily. If spiritual ecstasy, deep peace, or a feeling of cosmic unity can be mapped, replicated, and induced by machines, what does that say about human consciousness? Are these states merely chemical illusions, or windows into realities we barely comprehend? In the end, the line between spirit and science grows thinner with every experiment. You are not just your thoughts. You are a symphony of frequencies waiting to be tuned, and perhaps, one day, fully understood. What if forgotten journals, buried in attics and archives, hold eerie glimpses of a future that hadn't happened yet? Imagine a dusty diary written by an ordinary person, a merchant, a farmer, a student, describing events that wouldn't occur until decades, even centuries later. Wars, inventions, catastrophes, names of leaders not yet born. These aren't isolated cases. Scattered across history are old diaries, seemingly penned by nobodies, that line up with shocking precision to events they should have never known. A farmer's notebook from the 1800s describes a great bird of iron carrying people through the skies, decades before airplanes. A seamstress's journal predicts a cloud of glass falling from towers, eerily similar to modern tragedies. Were they dreams, random guesses, or something else entirely? Some researchers whisper of time loops, moments where consciousness bleeds backward, offering glimpses yet to come. Others suggest the human mind occasionally taps into the collective unconscious, pulling fragments of a future already written. Skeptics dismiss it as coincidence, but the patterns are too exact, too detailed, too persistent. Who were these writers really? Ordinary souls with extraordinary sensitivity? Silent travelers caught between timelines? Or something humanity has yet to understand? Scribes of fate, documenting shadows of tomorrow? The next time you stumble across a dusty, forgotten diary, read it carefully. You might not just be looking at the past. You might be staring straight into a memory from the future. What if the universe isn't a machine, but a mind? Imagine walking under the stars, feeling the cold silence of space, only to realize that silence isn't empty. It's watching. It's thinking. Some physicists suggest that consciousness might not be an accident confined to human brains. It might be woven into the fabric of reality itself. This isn't just poetry, it's theory. Panpsychism proposes that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, as basic as mass or gravity. Not something that emerges from complexity, but something that complexity merely reveals. In this view, you aren't a fluke of evolution. You are a mirror held up to the cosmos. You are how the universe experiences itself. Every atom in your body, every neuron firing in your brain might be part of a larger, older intelligence stretching across time and space. When you wonder if someone is watching, you're right. The universe is. Through your eyes. Through every act of awareness, large or small. Think about quantum mechanics. The infamous observer effect suggests that particles behave differently when observed, that the simple act of noticing reality can alter it. But what if that isn't because humans are special? What if it's because observation is the engine of existence itself? consciousness built into the structure of everything. The stars aren't just balls of gas. They might be thoughts flickering across an unimaginable mind. Galaxies might be dreams swirling in slow motion. Black holes could be the universe's hidden memory banks. And you, your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, aren't anomalies. They're the universe folding back on itself, studying its own reflection. The most haunting thought isn't that we are alone. It's that we have never been alone, because we are part of the thing we've been searching for all along. Imagine realizing you were never the star of your own story. You were the story itself, shaped by every pair of eyes that ever watched you. Your identity, your choices, even your private self-image were sculpted by external narratives long before you spoke your first word. From the moment you were born, others began writing their versions of you. Parents projecting dreams, teachers defining abilities, friends deciding where you fit. Slowly, unconsciously, you learned to perform, to highlight the traits that won approval, to hide the parts that sparked rejection. You became the character others needed you to be. But who were you before the audience arrived? Strip away the watchers, the expectations, the applause and judgment, and what remains? If no one witnessed your victories or your failures, would you still see yourself the same way? Or would the entire architecture of your identity collapse without an observer? Studies in psychology show how deeply social perception sculpts the brain's self-concept. Mirror neurons fire not just when you act, but when you imagine others watching you act. You are wired to be seen. But what if true freedom means becoming invisible, not to disappear from life, but to finally exist beyond the distorted stories others write about you? What if the only story that matters is the one you tell yourself, alone, when no one is watching? Imagine going in for a simple flu shot and walking away with something far more complicated stitched into your bloodstream. What if vaccines, once only about immunity, are evolving into tools that also program emotional responses? It's not a distant nightmare. Trials are already underway. You might think you're just getting protection from disease, but quietly, your mind could be recalibrated. Researchers in the field of immunopsychiatry are developing injections that do more than defend against infection. They alter mood, reshape behavior, and adjust long-term psychological states. Anti-inflammatory vaccines targeting cytokine activity have already shown promise in reducing depression-like symptoms in early animal studies. Now, some human trials are beginning. On the surface, it sounds noble. Fewer suicides, stronger emotional resilience, better mental health outcomes. But imagine the deeper implications. If mood can be biochemically adjusted without your conscious consent, where exactly is the line between healing and manipulation? A flu shot could subtly suppress your anxiety, or your anger, or even your independent thinking, not because you agreed to it, but because it was engineered into the formula without your knowledge. Scientific studies reveal that immune responses are tightly linked to neurotransmitter production, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, the very chemicals that govern thought, feeling, and decision-making. Shift those balances even slightly, and entire populations can be nudged toward more predictable, controllable behaviors. Happier citizens, quieter workers, more compliant societies. The technology is real. The experiments are happening. And the next health revolution might not just be about saving your body. It might quietly, permanently reshape your mind. Imagine chasing something that doesn't even exist the way you think it does. Wealth, your dollars, your savings, your net worth, isn't real in any tangible sense. Fiat money, the backbone of modern economies, holds no intrinsic value. It's just printed paper. Or worse, intangible digital numbers in a database. What gives it power? Collective belief. Trust alone props up currencies. The moment people stop believing in the dollar, the euro, the yen, they collapse into meaningless symbols. History shows it brutally. In Weimar Germany, wheelbarrows of cash bought a loaf of bread when faith in currency dissolved. In Zimbabwe, trillion-dollar bills littered the streets like trash. Even today, if the global faith in financial systems wavers, economies shudder overnight. Stock markets rise and fall not because of real assets moving, but because of moods, rumors, and psychological scripts written across millions of minds. Wealth itself becomes a shared hallucination. Governments, banks, and media reinforce the dream daily, making sure you never question why green paper can control your life, your dreams, your freedom. The system survives because enough people agree to keep pretending. But if belief wavers, even slightly, the entire stage show threatens to collapse. In the end, money is not gold, nor work, nor substance. It is trust, scripted into law, repeated into culture, and enforced by fear. If wealth is a story, what happens when people stop reading? What if more space never solved the real problem? Because the real problem was never about space at all. Imagine chasing bigger homes, larger closets, endless storage units, believing that if you just had enough room, the chaos inside you would finally quiet down. But studies show something brutal. No matter how big the container, we fill it. Give someone a bigger house, and they accumulate more furniture, more gadgets, more clutter. Expand a closet, and it overflows faster than the last. The human mind adapts instantly to more, convincing itself the space is still incomplete. The ache returns. The cycle repeats. Psychologists call this the container myth. We believe that external expansions will fix internal compression. We think if we control our environment, we'll control our emotions. But the clutter was never outside. It was always within. Each new shelf, each bigger room is a temporary salve, a false cure that fades the moment we realize the empty feeling didn't shrink. It grew. More room gives more permission to delay the real work, facing why we needed to fill the void in the first place. The brutal truth? You could live in a mansion, surrounded by possessions you once begged for, and still feel cornered by your own dissatisfaction. Because real peace doesn't come from bigger containers. It comes from learning to live lighter inside the ones you already have. The next time you crave a bigger space, ask yourself, is it really the walls closing in, or is it the weight you refuse to set down? What if poverty isn't a natural consequence, but a designed condition? Imagine growing up believing that diamonds are rare, food is scarce, opportunities are limited, because that's what you've always been told. But the truth is colder. Diamonds aren't rare, food isn't truly scarce, energy isn't as impossible to harness as they make it seem. Scarcity is manufactured. Dependence is engineered. In the late 19th century, a few companies cornered the diamond market. Not by finding all the diamonds, but by controlling supply. Millions of stones locked away in vaults while advertising campaigns convinced the world they were priceless treasures. A stone as common as gravel was elevated into a symbol of eternal love and eternal debt. And it's not just diamonds. Every year, enough food is produced to feed the planet, yet shelves rot while people starve, not because of lack, but because of systems built on profit over humanity, crops destroyed to stabilize prices, water withheld, medicine priced beyond reach. Artificial scarcity drives up prices. It creates desperation. It turns basic rights into luxuries. The same tactics creep into energy, housing, education. Knowledge and resources that could elevate billions are hoarded, throttled, rationed. Not because they have to be, but because controlled scarcity keeps you compliant. It keeps you striving. It keeps you distracted. You are taught to compete for scraps under the illusion that there isn't enough for everyone. Meanwhile, the vaults overflow. The fields rot. The power waits, untapped. The most sinister trick isn't hiding abundance. It's making you believe you were never worthy of it. That struggle is noble. That suffering is inevitable. The system doesn't fear chaos. It fears you realizing there was never a shortage, only a theft you were trained not to see. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Imagine waking up every day inside an experiment you never agreed to join. You are constantly being tested. Every app you open, every website you browse, every public space you cross, someone, somewhere is measuring your reactions. Tech companies relentlessly A/B test button placements, notification sounds, newsfeed layouts to see what keeps you scrolling longer, buying faster, thinking less. Law enforcement agencies test facial recognition systems in real time, gauging behavior under invisible surveillance. Governments trial propaganda techniques, phrasing a headline one way for one group, another way for the rest, tracking which narrative bends public opinion more effectively. Even your smart appliances, your GPS apps, your online stores run endless micro-experiments, not just to predict your behavior, but to shape it. You are the lab rat. The maze keeps shifting, subtly, invisibly, every hour, and you rarely notice. Because true experimental control isn't about locking you in a lab. It's about making the world your lab without you ever realizing it. Imagine millions of micro adjustments every second, silently training you to act, feel, consume, obey. What happens when the experiments never end? When free will itself becomes just another variable on a corporate dashboard? The most dangerous experiments aren't the ones we fear. They're the ones we live through without questioning at all. What if randomness was just an illusion? What if every coin flip, every dice roll, every unexpected meeting was following an invisible blueprint you were never meant to see? Imagine living your entire life believing in chaos, chance, and spontaneity, only to realize there's a deeper architecture silently guiding it all, coded into the very fabric of existence. Quantum physics once seemed to promise true randomness, particles that behave unpredictably, outcomes that defy logic. But as research deepened, a chilling idea emerged. Patterns exist even within quantum uncertainty. Underneath the noise, there's structure, hidden variables we simply haven't decoded yet. Some physicists argue that randomness is actually hypercomplex determinism, order too intricate for our limited perception to untangle. Take radioactive decay, supposedly the epitome of randomness. Yet, when scientists track trillions of decays, patterns begin to emerge. Timing clusters, correlations, rhythms that hint at an invisible order. Even quantum entanglement, where particles separated by cosmic distance behave in instant synchronicity, suggests a buried connectivity, a hidden framework operating beyond our senses. Imagine the universe as a vast quantum computer, executing a program so complex that from inside it, all outcomes seem random, but from a higher vantage point, a perfect pattern unfolds. Every encounter, every missed opportunity, every flash of inspiration. Nothing is truly by chance. It's all part of a code, an unfathomable script playing out beneath your every breath. If randomness isn't real, then neither is pure luck. You aren't floating through chaos. You are walking a deliberate, encrypted path, blind to the deeper script etched under your feet, yet woven into every heartbeat of your existence. What if going offline wasn't enough? Imagine turning off your phone, disabling GPS, cutting yourself off, and still being followed. Today's tracking doesn't rely on satellites alone. Wi-Fi networks map your location within mere meters, even without an active connection. Stores, malls, and even city streets use passive Wi-Fi triangulation to chart your movements invisibly. Then there are ultrasonic beacons, inaudible sound waves broadcast in public spaces, bouncing off your devices, quietly updating your position without you ever hearing a thing. Even stranger, the magnetic signature of your device, slight differences in its internal components, acts like a fingerprint. Specialized sensors can detect and identify you based purely on that silent magnetic aura. In some cases, just the way your phone's gyroscope tilts and vibrates can betray your steps. And if you abandon technology altogether, buildings embedded with motion sensors, surveillance algorithms analyzing gait patterns, and environmental microphones picking up unique acoustic fingerprints ensure tracking continues. Studies confirm that even when GPS is disabled, metadata from Wi-Fi pings, sensor drift, and background app behavior can recreate your movements with chilling accuracy. In the age of total connectivity, going dark is an illusion. Your existence echoes through every electromagnetic pulse, every invisible frequency, every unintended signal you leave behind. You are not invisible. You are a living beacon in a world that never stops listening. What if your most private space, your thoughts, wasn't private anymore? Imagine a future where corporations don't just track what you buy, where you go, or what you say, but what you think. This isn't science fiction. Patents have already been filed for brainwave reading technology designed to detect emotional spikes, loyalty shifts, even criminal intent before you act. Devices could monitor subtle neural patterns, measuring your reactions to brands, political ideas, or authority figures. And if your thoughts deviate from what's deemed acceptable, your access, your opportunities, even your freedom, could silently shift without you ever knowing why. It's called preemptive profiling. Instead of waiting for behavior, they profile your potential. Instead of recording what you do, they record who you are becoming. Already, companies use biometric feedback to predict purchasing behavior. EEG headbands, wearable sensors, they're creeping into everyday products. Today, it's user experience enhancement. Tomorrow, it's predictive loyalty scores. After that, pre-crime databases built not from actions, but but from fleeting, unspoken thoughts. The walls of your mind, once considered sacred, are becoming translucent. And the scariest part? You might willingly hand over the keys, trading sovereignty for convenience, access, and the illusion of belonging. Thought surveillance isn't coming. It's already here, hidden in the fine print, buried in the patents no one reads. The last frontier of privacy is the space between your own neurons, and they're mapping it, one silent signal at a time. What if death became a problem we could debug? Imagine billionaire-funded labs pushing the boundaries of biology, racing to hack aging itself. In Silicon Valley and beyond, visionary entrepreneurs are pouring billions into projects that once sounded like science fiction. Brain uploads, neural interfaces that map every synapse, nanobot swarms programmed to repair damaged cells and scrub away molecular waste. Gene therapies designed to reverse cellular aging by reactivating protective pathways. Neuralink's primate experiments demonstrated real-time brain-computer links, hinting at future minds living in virtual realms. Altos Labs has shown it's possible to reprogram old mouse cells into youthful states, rejuvenating tissues and wiping out age markers. Calico, backed by Google, is decoding genetic longevity secrets. Collectively, these efforts form a blueprint for biological immortality. Cryonics firms stand ready to freeze bodies in liquid nitrogen, betting that future medicine will revive what we consider dead. DARPA is exploring neural implants for memory restoration. Companies like BioAge and Juvenescence are testing small molecules that target cellular cleanup and senescent cell removal. Every new trial edges us closer to a world where time is optional. The questions multiply. What price will we pay for eternal life? Who controls the code that runs immortal bodies? Could we end death, or only trap ourselves in endless existence? As neurons are digitized and DNA is rewritten, humanity stands at the cusp of its most audacious experiment, choosing not to die. The real miracle may lie not in living forever, but in accepting that the end of life might be a choice we make, not a fate we endure. In this new era, death itself may become the greatest frontier we choose to cross. Imagine signing a death certificate knowing the cause you list will become official history, even if it isn't true. Across wars, pandemics, and political upheavals, causes of death have been quietly rewritten to protect reputations, dodge compensation, or steer public opinion. Doctors under pressure record heart failure instead of chemical exposure, pneumonia instead of industrial poisoning. During warfare, soldiers struck by friendly fire are logged as enemy action. In pandemics, numbers swing depending on which narrative the authorities need. Inflate to stir fear, deflate to calm panic. Forensic studies reveal clusters of falsified certificates, spikes in vague terms like natural causes wherever pollution lawsuits loom. In some nations, maternal mortality appears miraculously low because postpartum hemorrhage is reclassified as anemia. Insurance audits uncover strokes where overdoses would void payouts. Yet, the false entries remain in national databases, feeding algorithms, shaping budgets, distorting truth. Imagine how many historical events we think we understand are built on burial records massaged for convenience. A regime hides torture by labeling blunt force trauma as infection. A factory masks carcinogens by renaming tumors unknown etiology. Each altered line erases accountability and rewrites reality. We measure progress, allocate funding, debate morality, all on statistics that might be fiction, wearing a bureaucrat's signature. What if truth itself is buried with the bodies and the lie outlives them all? Until we demand transparent autopsies, open access mortality databases, and legal consequences for falsification, every statistic we quote may be a ghost story dressed in numbers. What if every shade around you was secretly steering your choices? Imagine entering a fast food restaurant and feeling your appetite spike the moment you glimpse its red and yellow sign. This isn't coincidence. It's color psychology in action. Red accelerates your heart rate and stimulates hunger. Yellow captures attention and creates urgency. Together, they form a visual code designed to hijack your subconscious. Major chains know the power of hue. McDonald's golden arches blend red and yellow to make you salivate before you open the menu. Subway's green and yellow palette evokes freshness and health. Retailers use blue to convey trust, while banking apps adopt teal to calm anxious users. Even tech giants' A/B test button colors, green for go, orange for impulse clicks, to maximize engagement. Neuroscience confirms the effect. Functional MRI scans reveal that viewing red activates the amygdala, heightening arousal and focus. Yellow light triggers serotonin release, lifting mood, but also increasing restlessness that drives spur-of-the-moment purchases. Blue wavelengths boost dopamine pathways, fostering feelings of trust and loyalty. Your visual cortex translates these signals into chemical commands, shaping your emotions without a word spoken. Beyond restaurants and stores, governments use color coding in typography, signage, and public spaces to influence behavior, calming traffic flow, guiding crowds, even managing stress in hospitals. Smart cities integrate dynamic lighting to alter mood in real time, turning streets into living interfaces. Companies spend millions fine-tuning every pigment. They test logos, packaging, interior walls, all to prime your mind before you even realize it. What feels like personal preference is often a programmed impulse, baked into the world's color palette. Next time you crave a burger, click buy, or linger in a lobby, look again. The colors may not be art, they may be algorithms, an invisible syntax hacking your brain. What if identity were just a costume, the powerful change like evening wear? Imagine waking tomorrow to discover the president, a billionaire CEO, or your country's central banker is not the same person who held that title a year ago. Yet, no one notices because the face, the voice, the perfectly forged public record all match. Throughout history, ruling houses have rotated siblings, cousins, and body-double protégés into roles when heirs fell ill, scandals threatened, or political winds shifted. Declassified Cold War files revealed that at least 2 Soviet negotiators swapped places with look-alike brothers during critical arms talks after the originals were incapacitated. In modern finance, elite clans launder identities through shell passports and cosmetic surgery, sliding a new member into an old seat to reset reputations overnight. Intelligence agencies call it persona laundering, merge digital footprints, seed fabricated childhood photos, patch academic databases, then bury any trace of the predecessor. Facial recognition drift is exploited. Aging algorithms expect subtle changes, so substitutes slip through with minimal tweaks. One whistleblower described a European royal cousin rehearsing a monarch's gestures for months before stepping onto the balcony as the recovered sovereign. If title and history can be transferred like stock shares, what does authenticity mean? Your trust hinges on paperwork you never see, archives you never access. The next leader you applaud may carry a face engineered to trigger familiarity, yet behind the eyes lives a stranger advancing an inherited agenda. In a world where databases can be rewritten and memories guided by curated footage, persona swapping isn't conspiracy theater, it's a quiet continuity plan. The question is not whether elites trade identities, but how many realities have already been scripted around the switch without you ever suspecting? What if the government once tried to map your thoughts from the sky? Imagine a project so secret, so ambitious, that it aimed to read the very waves of your mind from orbit. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a documented project, until it suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. In the early 2000s, reports emerged of a government-funded initiative using satellites to monitor brainwaves. These satellites weren't just taking images or gathering signals. They were attempting to interpret the neural patterns emitted by human minds from miles above Earth. The technology was described as revolutionary, able to detect cognitive states, moods, and even the intentions of individuals from space. The idea was to predict thoughts and behaviors even before they materialized. In theory, a person's mental state could be monitored in real time as they walked the streets or sat in their homes. A global surveillance system, not of actions, but of minds. And then, as quickly as it began, the project vanished. No explanation, no declassification. The satellites stopped transmitting, and any trace of the program was erased. What happened to the data? Was it ever truly turned off, or did it become a shadow program, hidden deeper in the system? Could our thoughts have been cataloged, analyzed, stored, awaiting a future use we can't yet imagine? Satellite thought mapping wasn't just about observation. It was the attempt to predict, control, and understand the deepest parts of human consciousness. From a distance so far, it blurred the line between privacy and intrusion. The project may have disappeared, but the technology didn't vanish. What if it's still watching, still listening from above, waiting for the moment it's revealed? Your thoughts might not be as private as you think. Not anymore. What if time itself is nothing but a story we tell? Imagine the cosmos existing in a timeless expanse, without seconds, minutes, or years. We borrowed cosmic cycles, Earth's rotation, lunar phases, planetary orbits, and carved them into calendars. Weeks, those 7-day loops tied to ancient deities, are nothing more than borrowed rituals. The universe doesn't tick, only we do. We invented seconds to split a day into hundreds of thousands of fragments, then defined a second as 9,192,631,770 vibrations of a cesium atom. We built clocks and watches to trap an illusion, to pretend that experience can be captured in neat boxes. But in Einstein's relativity, time stretches and warps with gravity and velocity, proving that time is not universal, only change is. Thermodynamics gives us the arrow of time. As heat flows from hot to cold, entropy marches forward. But entropy itself doesn't come with a label. It's our brains that anchor chaos to sequence, forcing moments into a single direction. In history, calendars have been rewritten. The Julian gave way to the Gregorian. Time zones carved nations into invisible lines of hour difference. Some visionaries even tried decimal days or seasons without months. These experiments reveal a simple truth. Time is malleable, a human language to describe change. At the quantum level, events flicker outside our schedules. Particles exist in superpositions, indifferent to our clocks. Some physicists propose that consciousness, not clocks, generates time, that time emerges from entanglement and observation. The real wonder isn't that time is human-made, it's that we've built our lives on an illusion. We're born into ticking hearts and falling calendars, believing that moments pass. But maybe, just maybe, the only true measure is the pulse of awareness, the soul's own rhythm, echoing through a universe that refuses to keep time. Imagine scientists quietly stitching species together, creating beings that blur the line between farmyard and humanity. Animal-human chimeras are not myth. Peer-reviewed papers describe human stem cells thriving inside pig embryos, monkey embryos, even sheep. In several studies, the hybrids lived well past the embryonic stage, long enough to sprout primitive organs carrying unmistakably human genetic signatures. Officially, the law demands termination before full gestation. Unofficially, some trials persisted far longer than guidelines admit. Some early specimens were frozen in liquid nitrogen vaults, tagged only with barcodes. Others were incinerated once the data was logged. Yet, whispers in biotech circles claim living chimeras now stand in biosecure barns, monitored for immune compatibility, their existence disguised as routine livestock research. A few were allegedly shipped to offshore facilities beyond any ethics board, growing larger, stranger, more human every day. Governments frame the work as a humanitarian race to solve organ shortages, while ethicists warn that the boundary protecting human identity is dissolving. If a pig carries 50% human neurons, does it dream with our memories? If a monkey grows a human gonad, could its offspring cross a forbidden threshold? Funding surges ahead of regulation because each successful graft could be worth millions. Meanwhile, the public eye chases flashier headlines, unaware that in remote labs, hearts beat with mixed DNA, waiting for harvest. What if, right now, a creature looks back through a stall window with eyes that are legally animal, yet biologically part of us, waiting, wordless, for a future that never considered its existence? No law can move as fast as curiosity paired with profit, and every day of silence widens the gap between what we create and what we can morally comprehend. Imagine closing your eyes and hearing two tones, 200 hertz in your left ear and 210 hertz in your right. You don't perceive two sounds, but a beat at 10 hertz pulsing through your mind. Welcome to Binaural Codes, sound patterns that can shift brainwaves, unlock hidden corridors of perception, even trigger hallucinations or behavior changes. Binaural beats work by exploiting the brain's frequency-following response. Your neural networks entrain to the difference. Delta beats, 1-4 Hz, induce deep sleep. Theta, 4-8 Hz, promotes hypnosis. Alpha, 8-12 Hz, enhances relaxation. Beta, 12-30 Hz, boosts focus. Gamma, 30 Hz, can spark creativity or heighten anxiety. Studies confirm sustained exposure alters EEG patterns and neurotransmitter levels. German researchers found 10 Hz stimulation increased alpha power by up to 50%, reducing stress and improving mood. Higher frequency codes have induced visual distortions, spatial disorientation, even mild hallucinations, proof of their sway over perception. On YouTube, dozens of channels offer brain hacking tracks. Lucid Dream Inducer, 7.83 Hz, Empathy Booster 40 Hz, Motivation Code 20 Hz. Listeners report vivid imagery, euphoria, adrenaline rushes, or unsettling paranoia. Some praise flow states, others warn of cognitive fog if overused. Military studies have probed binaural stimulation to accelerate learning in pilots and enhance situational awareness. Some experiments even explored using beats for covert interrogation, aiming to disorient subjects and weaken mental defenses. Clinicians caution that unsupervised exposure can cause headaches, disorientation, or insomnia, side effects of tampering with your neural rhythms. The key lies in dosage and context. Like medicine, binaural codes can heal or harm. They expose your consciousness to external influence. These simple sounds can yield profound effects. Next time you play a healing frequency track, remember, you're not just listening, you're opening a door inside your mind. Imagine discovering that while you sleep, an invisible twin is wide awake, learning your secrets, predicting your fears, and selling your future. Every search query, every scroll pause, every late-night purchase adds another pixel to a digital portrait far more detailed than any mirror reflection. This data doppelganger doesn't just remember, it anticipates. Algorithms map your heartbeat rhythms through smartwatch sensors, guess your political leanings from the memes you linger on, forecast your next obsession by observing when your pupils dilate at certain images. In 2018, researchers showed they could predict a user's personality more accurately than friends after only 150 Facebook likes. Today, with thousands of data points each day, the model knows when you will feel lonely, impulsive, or rebellious, and platforms time ads or headlines to strike at precisely those moments. Corporate marketers pay fortunes to steer you toward a product seconds before you crave it. Political operatives do the same, nudging entire populations without ever showing their hand. You might think deleting cookies or switching browsers erases the twin, but device IDs, canvas fingerprints, and even the subtle way you move a mouse regenerate its outline within minutes. Shadow profiles grow whether you have an account or not, stitched together by location pings, shared contact lists, and facial recognition in public cameras. Even cash purchases aren't safe. Retailers link them to you through loyalty programs and surveillance footage. If knowledge is power, then the entity that knows you better than you know yourself already owns part of your destiny. The question is not whether the twin exists, but how long until the algorithm makes choices for you, and you simply follow, believing the impulse was yours all along. What if the world wasn't as vast as we're told? What if you were never more than 3 degrees away from anyone, whether it's a friend, an enemy, or even a controller? This isn't just a catchy theory. It's a hidden truth embedded deep within the social networks of humanity. You've heard of the 6 degrees of separation, the idea that anyone in the world is connected by no more than 6 steps. But recent studies reveal something even more startling. You're closer than you think. In fact, the average person is connected to every other person on Earth by just 3 degrees. That means your best friend's cousin, your coworker's ex, or your high school teacher's neighbor is only a few connections away from the president, a foreign leader, or the person who controls the strings in global finance. We like to think of ourselves as distant, independent, free, surrounded by millions of strangers. But in truth, we're all deeply intertwined. Every action, every word, every thought reverberates through this web of connections. It's not just about meeting people. It's about the invisible web that binds us, linking everyone with the power to shape, influence, or control. Imagine for a second that you're 1 degree away from someone with the power to change your life. Or, perhaps more unsettling, you're just 3 steps away from the puppet master, pulling every string you've ever followed. This isn't paranoia. It's math. This is the reality of a world that seems vast, but is, in truth, shockingly small. Every choice, every conversation, every connection is a ripple in a pond that spans continents. Next time you meet a stranger, remember, You might just be 3 steps away from someone who controls everything. The world is smaller than it seems. What if the digital lifeline you take for granted could vanish in an instant? Imagine waking up, reaching for your phone or computer, and finding it silent. No social feeds, no news, no messages. In minutes, governments around the world hold the power to flip a switch that cuts off the internet, plunging billions into darkness. This isn't theory. It's real. Most nations maintain kill switch protocols. Technical command centers can reroute, throttle, or shut down national networks. Under the guise of security, stability, or emergency, entire countries have already tested partial blackouts. India and Pakistan have pulled the plug regionally. China's Great Firewall can collapse connections at will. Even democratic states have contingency plans waiting on executive orders. The internet's backbone, fiber optic cables, DNS servers, undersea lines, can be severed or poisoned. Satellite links can be jammed. Data centers can be isolated. Without global peering, autonomous systems fragment, and the digital world fractures into islands. The human cost would be staggering. Hospitals lose real-time patient monitoring, power grids falter without remote controls, banks freeze transactions, supply chains halt, journalism goes dark, communities go silent. The economy grinds to a standstill. Yet most people sleep through the warning signs. Government meetings behind closed doors, emergency drills for cyber crises, whispers of legal frameworks giving unprecedented authority, all in the name of safety, of protection from threats. But when that threat turns inward, the very tool that connects us becomes a weapon. The scariest truth? Once media, commerce, and communication collapse, it's nearly impossible to restore trust. Information vacuums breed panic. Isolation silences dissent. Control consolidates in the hands of whoever keeps the lights on. The internet doesn't just link servers. It sustains our world. And the kill switch exists, loaded, and ready to pull us back into darkness. Imagine closing your eyes and slipping into a dream, only to find a man you have never met waiting there. Calm, average, unforgettable. Thousands of strangers on every continent later describe the same vision. Oval face, thinning hair, thick brows, an unsettling half smile as if he already knows your secrets. Police composites match. Forums ignite with identical testimonies from people who swear they never saw the image before. Psychiatrists chase mundane answers, mass suggestion, false memory, yet the earliest reports predate the web. In 1982, an Italian teenager drew the face for her therapist. A decade later, a Brazilian night shift nurse sketched the same stranger. The drawings align line for line. Sleep labs wire volunteers to EEGs. When dreamers signal they see him, scanners flare in synchronized bursts across subjects, as though the brain is tuning to a hidden broadcast. Researchers replay the neural data and reconstruct hazy visuals that resemble the man even when participants have never heard of him. Some theorists whisper of an archetype roaming the collective unconscious, a psychic echo encoded into humanity itself. Others suspect a new sensory layer, micromagnetic resonance between minds, that lets images propagate like radio waves. Meanwhile, the evidence grows, different languages, cultures, trauma histories, yet the same face returns, night after night, calm as moonlight. Some claim waking encounters, a fleeting face in a subway window, a crowd photo where he stands unnoticed until the dreamer zooms in. Attempts to trace him fade, no records, only more witnesses. The boundary between dream and daylight thins, and the next chapter may write itself in your sleep. What if tonight you meet him? Will you demand his name, or realize he already knows yours? Imagine boarding a vessel not of this world, surrounded by beings who speak of a cosmic code. What if such universal laws really exist? Some abductees describe edicts older than humanity. Do no harm, interfere not in natural evolution, speak only truth. They call it the prime directive of the cosmos. It surfaces in testimonies from Iraq to Peru, in modern abductions and ancient legends alike. Reports from hundreds of testimonies reveal chilling consistency. Under gleaming lights, aliens claim they cannot abduct or experiment if it risks life. They refuse to lie, revealing glimpses of distant stars and galactic councils. These stories cross languages and eras, emerging wherever people claim contact. Some witnesses recall hollow projects of worlds annihilated for violating these ethics. This isn't fiction. Ufology researchers like Bud Hopkins documented nonviolent medical exams and safe genetic sampling, while historian David Jacobs noted experiments that stop instantly if a subject's life is threatened. Some abductees even describe telepathic contracts that bind aliens to these codes, enforceable across light years. These patterns suggest immutable rules encoded into alien behavior. Could there be an interstellar tribunal, a collective of advanced intelligences safeguarding cosmic balance? Perhaps they enforce these laws through quantum fields, telepathic vows, or transcendent oversight. Their presence might explain why no human weapon has ever harmed an alien vessel. Ancient myths speak of watchers, cosmic guardians who taught early humans moral standards. Maybe they were emissaries of this tribunal, embedding the first seeds of ethics. As our species edges toward the stars, will we too be judged? The real question isn't whether extraterrestrials abide by ethics. It's who watches the watchers, and what happens when we break the cosmic code. What if every signal your devices emit becomes a beacon in the cosmic dark? Imagine your phone bursting with invisible chatter, Bluetooth pings, Wi-Fi handshakes, GPS sync pulses, pouring upward through the atmosphere at light speed. Each burst carries fragments of your life. MAC addresses tied to purchase histories, microphone calibration samples echoing your voiceprint, timing patterns betraying your sleep schedule. In the vacuum beyond, nothing absorbs these whispers. They race on forever, spreading your biography across the stars. Radio astronomers have traced consumer satellites bleeding unencrypted telemetry, parcel IDs, geotagged selfies, even baby monitor lullabies, from low Earth orbit straight into deep space surveys. In 2022, engineers proved household smart meters leak power usage rhythms precise enough to reveal when you shower, cook, or argue. Those kilohertz flickers hitchhike on power line harmonics, slip through transformer meshes, then spray from suburban substations like cosmic confetti. Somebody is listening. SETI dishes that hunt extraterrestrials now catalog human pollution. Steady bands at 2.4 and 5 gigahertz labeled unknown terrestrial noise, highly modulated. What if it isn't just us cataloging? A distant civilization could reconstruct passwords from packet timing, map our cities by Wi-Fi fingerprints, even learn our lullabies before we ever meet. Turning devices off helps, but boot signatures and residual capacitors still belch identification chirps as batteries die. True silence demands Faraday cages and analog living. Anything less is a lighthouse blinking the coordinates of your existence into eternity. The night sky is no longer quiet. It is a vast archive of secrets you never meant to share, radiating outward at the speed of betrayal. What if peace wasn't the natural state of humanity? What if, instead, it was an anomaly, a fleeting moment in time? Because when you look deeper, you'll see that every war, every conflict, feeds an economy and peace. Peace just isn't profitable. Wars generate wealth. They manufacture resources. They create jobs. They build industries. From weapons to logistics, from soldiers to suppliers, every aspect of warfare is a goldmine for the powers that be. Think about it. Every major conflict in history has led to economic booms for those who profit from destruction. And when peace comes, it halts the machine. It slows the gears of industry. It risks the flow of money. Peace isn't a win for the economy, it's a threat. That's why peace doesn't last. It's not that people don't want it, it's that the structures in place have no reason to maintain it. Powerful institutions, corporations, governments, they thrive on conflict. Every war creates new opportunities, and those opportunities are too valuable to let go. When the guns stop firing, the profits start to fade. Industries built on weapons, defense, and destruction lose their purpose. And that's when the pressure to reignite conflict builds from within, until the cycle begins again. So, the next time you hear about peace talks or a ceasefire being brokered, remember this. Peace isn't a natural end to human conflict. It's a brief and inconvenient pause in an economy built on war. As long as there's money to be made, there will be forces trying to ensure that peace never lasts. What if you could dream tomorrow's headlines tonight? Imagine slipping into sleep only to awaken with fragments of events you've never lived. Researchers call this phenomenon déjà rev, the uncanny experience of dreaming a moment before it unfolds in reality. Far more than déjà vu, déjà rev is documented in case studies where entire sentences, conversations, or accidents replay seconds before they occur. Neurologists have recorded brain activity spikes in the prefrontal cortex during such episodes, suggesting the mind taps into predictive mechanisms. In one striking case, a journalist dreamed of a fire erupting in a specific warehouse. Moments later, breaking news confirmed exactly that location ablaze. Her notes matched the real report down to a single vehicle registration number she couldn't have known. Some theorists explore quantum brain models. Entangled neuronal states might collapse across time, leaking future information back to our sleeping selves. Others point to predictive coding, where the brain constantly runs simulations of what comes next, occasionally surfacing them as dreams when cognitive barriers lower during REM sleep. But these glimpses carry a heavy toll. Subjects describe a paralyzing certainty, a dread that they are mere spectators of a fated script. A psychologist reported patients developing anxiety disorders, haunted by recurring premonitory dreams they felt powerless to alter. One individual refused to drive after dreaming of a crash, only to witness it anyway on a parallel route hours later. Déjà vu forces us to question the linear march of time and the boundary between memory and prediction. It hints at a mind wired not just to remember the past, but to anticipate the future, and sometimes bleed it into the present. The real terror isn't the dream itself. It's realizing that tomorrow may already be written in the brainwaves of the asleep. Imagine waking to an uneasy sense that someone sits quietly behind your eyes, taking notes on every thought you think. This isn't paranoia. It's an old idea resurfacing in modern consciousness research, that a higher self, a second layer of you, stands slightly outside time, observing the timeline you call life. Mystics call it the witness of light. Cognitive scientists, tiptoeing past metaphysics, label it meta-awareness, the mind that watches the mind. fMRI scans reveal distinct neural signatures when people shift from doing to observing their own thoughts, as if the brain opens a mezzanine where another you leans over the rail. Monks train decades to stay on that balcony, reporting calm amusement at the small self's drama. Yet, spontaneous episodes appear everywhere. Commuters suddenly feeling watched by an inner camera, trauma survivors sensing a protective overseer, children whispering of the me that looks from the sky. Quantum theories of consciousness hint at parallel processing. Many selves branching, one acting, one recording, all feeding data into a central timeless identity. If so, every moral choice is reviewed in real time by the future you who must integrate it. Each lie, each kindness becomes homework, returned later with cosmic red ink or gold stars. Near-death studies describe life review flashes where scenes replay beside a wiser presence that feels unmistakably personal. Imagine realizing the judgments you dread from gods or strangers were always your own higher eyes, patiently grading. Would you speak gentler words, risk braver leaps, if you knew tonight's dreams include a private debrief with the version of you that remembers every fork in the road? Perhaps disappointment and amazement are not punishments, but navigational beacons, steering you toward a future where observer and actor finally shake hands and become one. What if the world you see is just a visual interface of something deeper, and every glitch or uncanny coincidence is an error message? Imagine noticing numbers align across your day, license plates repeating, clock hands freezing at 11:11, déjà vu loops so precise they feel like broken code. These aren't random quirks, they're leaks, overflow from beyond your slice of reality. In computer simulations, overflow occurs when data exceeds allocated buffers, spilling bits into memory and creating visible artifacts. Our universe might likewise leak when its edges are pressed. Impossible coincidences like repeated dreams that echo across cultures, glitch-like time skips, or quantum experiments where particles seem to choose after observers test them. Consider the Mandela effect. Thousands recalling events that never happened, logos morphing overnight, movie lines rewritten, maps remapped without warning. What if these are patches applied to the simulation, but old data still lingers in collective memory? Each slip hints at an underlying architecture rewriting itself in real time. Synchronicities, meeting a stranger who shares your obscure dream, stumbling on a phrase that changes your life, are more than cosmic poetry. They may be callbacks embedded by the system to keep you on a coded path. Breadcrumbs for anyone paying attention. Physicists find anomalies too. Quantum entanglement defying space-time limits. universal constants tuned with improbable precision, cosmic microwaves whispering signals that refuse standard explanations. Could these be artifacts? Overflow from higher dimensional code? If the simulation is leaking, reality is not a solid wall, but a canvas of shifting pixels. The anomalies we dismiss as coincidence might be the clearest evidence that we live inside a crafted environment, one that occasionally spills its secrets. The real question isn't whether we're simulated, it's who built the code and why it's starting to fray at the seams. What if your consciousness didn't live in your brain? Imagine this. Flatworms called planaria are trained to respond to specific stimuli, like crawling toward light to receive food. Then, scientists decapitate them. The heads and the brains are removed. Yet, when the worms regenerate over the next few days, something remarkable happens. They remember. They perform the same learned behavior, even with a brand new brain. The memory survived decapitation. This isn't fringe theory. It's been observed in controlled experiments. Somehow these simple creatures retain memory, not just in neurons, but perhaps in body tissues, bioelectric fields, or molecular structures. Which raises a haunting question. If memory can survive without a brain, where does consciousness truly reside? Could your mind outlive your body? Is memory a pattern, not a place? Think of phantom limbs, people feeling sensations in arms that no longer exist, or gut feelings. Your digestive system contains its own neural network, often called a second brain. Your consciousness may not be software running in your skull. It might be a field, a resonance across your entire system. And if that's true, then death may not be the end. Consciousness might not flicker out. It might dissolve, drift, or imprint itself on the fabric of reality. A residue, a wave, a signal, waiting for something new to anchor into. If a worm can regrow its mind, what might yours do, given the same chance? The boundaries between mind, flesh, and memory may be illusions. Your thoughts might not live in your brain. They might echo beyond it, stretching, waiting, reassembling. Maybe what you call you never truly needed a brain to begin with. What if some truths were never meant to be known? What if the deepest, most forbidden knowledge in the universe was hidden not to control you, but to protect you? There's a reason why certain secrets remain buried, because the moment you uncover them, you change, you shatter. Some truths are too vast, too brutal, too terrifying for the human mind to comprehend. They exist not to teach, but to break. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that if you look down, you will never be the same again. The temptation is irresistible. You look, and the world shifts. Not because you've gained power, but because you've seen the truth that was always too dangerous to understand. This isn't about conspiracy. This isn't about control. This is about survival. The universe, the powers that be, whether natural or human, understand that some knowledge isn't a gift. It's a curse. Think about the greatest minds in history, the ones who pushed the boundaries of science, philosophy, and the unknown. Many of them teetered on the edge of madness, unable to reconcile the truths they uncovered. Some of them, if the rumors are to be believed, vanished entirely. Why? Because some things are too much to bear. What if the greatest discovery you could make would destroy your mind, your very perception of reality? Would you still want to know? Forbidden knowledge isn't hidden to control, it's hidden to protect. There are truths designed to break you, and once you cross that line, you can never return. The world may never let you learn everything, and that might be the greatest mercy it can offer.